The Denny J Show.
Zvanga zviri down ta up tauraidzwe nyaya dzacho dzese narrative ndaichidwe kana mchida kutipisa deep ndaipidwe make you spill a bean if you know what I mean hande
It's time!
Hey everybody, if you're tuned in, this is the award-winning podcast, The Denny J Show. Thank you. Oh, you're far too kind.
Becky K,
What do you do?
how you doing?
I'm doing good.
What's up, guys?
I'm doing good.
Hey, this microphone is not in the right
You're
position.
fighting with it.
Is this okay?
Don't fight.
Is this fine?
Yes, Bako, can you see him?
My lips?
Do you see Bako?
Yeah. Are my lips okay, Becky?
Yes, they are fine. Aren't you got your lip items ready?
Yeah, I've got my...
Lip therapy.
Welcome to yet another episode of
The award-winning
Winning.
podcast, The Denny J
Denny
Show.
J Show.
Yes.
Today, again, is another special...
I'm excited
episode.
about today's episode,
You know,
actually.
we've got Becky's former boss in the building.
Ten, 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 ten.
You know,
Yeah.
Hey, do we just introduce him? This is a big man.
But we haven't heard from Nash at all. Nash hasn't said
Oh,
a
Nash.
word.
What's up, Nash?
What's good, guys?
I'm getting excited, Nash. Sorry, I forgot about you, man.
Eish.
You know, we got a legend in the building.
Mufunge.
I know, so you can excuse me.
All right.
What's going on, bro?
Now that we've heard from Nash, you still want to talk?
No. Today I'm a bit starstruck, so you know.
You, starstruck. Okay. Let's see how it goes. And your smart mouth.
Yeah. I got you.
You got us?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, as Denny alluded, we do have a superstar of note who is our guest today and my former boss. He's known as Supa Mandiwanzira, born 18 September 1972. He's a Zimbabwean politician and journalist who served as the Minister of Information Communication Technology 2014 to 2017, and then Minister of Information Communication Technology and Cybersecurity in the Cabinet of Zimbabwe from November 2017 to September 2018. His earlier portfolio has been merged with cybersecurity. He is a member of the Zanu PF political party. He was the founder is the founder of ZiFM stereo radio station and the online ZTV station. I do not know ZTV
You've forgotten a number.
station. Hence, I said
Okay.
I will do what Wikipedia
All right. Okay.
has, and then if we left anything out,
All right.
the man himself is here.
He's also a member of the Politburo.
He's also, oh yes, that's a big one.
Do you know what the Politburo is?
Sha.
Why didn't you include it in there?
Antibody.
He's a high-ranking.
He's going to tell
Zanu
his
PF
story.
Official.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Supa Mandiwanzira. Welcome to the Denny J Show, boss.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you very, very much for having me. Danny, great pleasure to be here, man.
What does it go?
First time to be on an award-winning podcast.
Yes. Oh, that feels nice. Yes. Oh, that was so nice. That was so nice. Anditi, makabvumire kuya. Mabvumire.
Danny looked for me and said, I would like you to be on the show. I said, yeah, I've seen many characters on the show. I've seen Nigel Chanakira, I've seen Mono Mkunda, I've seen very famous Zimbabweans, so you may make me famous by being on the show. So I'm hoping to get some followers after this one.
Don't you worry. We got you covered there. We got you covered. So I just read through what Wikipedia basically just summarized as to who you are. My question to you is, at what point in your life and for how long were you known as Kodza?
I don't know because I'm hearing this name for the first time.
Because I'm Collins and another Kota.
Actually, a lot of people don't know my middle name, Kunti Ndonzo Collins. I don't go to Supa.
So you've never used Collins?
Ndere women Canada sign my documents bank Canada but I hardly use it. There are few who use it, but majority just use Supa.
No, okay.
Yeah, and I prefer that way anyway because I think it is more sellable.
Super is more
It's
sellable.
more
Plus,
sellable.
I don't think there's that many supers. If you hear super, you know it's
It's just one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
I've just met in my entire life. I think I've met two supers, and I have no doubt they were named after me.
Oh, well, I have no doubt.
But Kunzi Super and Dr. Shio, like, what is that? What sort of name is that?
Okay, so my name is Supa, spelled phonetically, but the meaning is Super. When my mom went to take the birth certificate, Nyanga, a long time ago, before independence, so mchinda nyora birth certificate angasingayenzo super inospelliwa say sakava nyora the Supa. But I think I like it that way. That was a good mistake because it distinguishes. But in terms of the meaning, it's just exactly the same.
Okay.
And actually, let me tell you how it came about. So I was born at Nyanga Hospital. So don't believe everything you see on Wikipedia. Because I was never
that's
born
what that actually.
I was never born in Sakuva. I was born at Nyanga Hospital, District Hospital. So what happened was like my mother. I come from Nyanga. Nyamakanga village.
Okay.
So we're walking distance to the district hospital. My father was working in Chitungwiza. So what happened was that 2 weeks before I was born, this is a story my mother relates to me. 2 weeks before I was born, my mom was traveling to Bonda Hospital. Bonda was like the bigger hospital before Nyanga District Hospital became what it became.
Right.
But the biggest referral hospital was Bonda Mission Hospital. So she got onto a bus and they were going to Bonda Mission Hospital, got to a station and somebody who was sitting somewhere in front dropped off at that station. And my mom said, no, I should leave where I'm sitting. Let me go and sit. She went and sat there. Few miles down the line, the bus unfortunately was involved in an accident, and you have an almost 9 months pregnant woman who's my mom, pregnant
On that bus.
Wow. Yeah. So munagapinda shukira bus akanogara where my mom was sitting, akava fila passport.
Wow.
So my mom decided that aende kunogara. She came out unscratched because she was one of the first persons that got rushed because obviously she was heavily pregnant. So they rushed her to Bonda Hospital. She was okay. So she related this story to my father, and I think my father really loved this kind of thing, drinks.
Right. And the super child.
So my father says, is that what happened? So everything was super then. So that's how the name came about, then called Super.
That's a
So it wasn't so super.
That's a
It's a
beautiful,
beautiful
story.
story, yeah. Then
How did they
everything
call you Rebecca?
I was named after my grandma.
Okay, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. You were expecting some drama, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful story.
It could have been like after Rebecca Malope,
Yeah.
but let's say grandmother. Yeah.
Yes, it was after my granny.
Oh, that's nice. So we have a lot to talk about. Your journey from, I think let's start from the beginning.
Right.
How did you get into media?
Okay. So this is what happened. I went to primary school in Nyanga,
Right.
rural primary school, grade 1 to grade 7. My mother was working in Motare. She was working as a maid. Aishandra mo arungu, chibikira arungu. Saka time going to Motare ku holiday.
Okay.
As and when we could. Then so I guess that's where the association with Sakuva comes from. But really taitongunu vakachira mai during my holidays. So patakapedza grade 7. Vakati kuti vana vachienda kuchikoro kumusha gandi vaunze kutown. Vapinde form 1 kune magetsi. So unoona kuerenga.
Tonas.
Yeah, so I went to a school iri kudanga mvura. It was a new school built by government. Mazuaja ataenda ku secondary. Hurumende yanga iri on an aggressive program yekuwaka ma schools so that a lot of us would go to school.
Okay.
So vakavaka this new school inonzi Nyamauru. It's danga mvura too, but the real name was Nyamauru High School. So yanga iri yekupedzisira. So people like Denny wakasvika vatsvaga nzvimbo kana kuti Baki. Mashai, boys high, girls high. Why are you coming to this school? Because it was like
the last
the last one. Yeah. Saka, but while I was there, I developed a passion, and really this was It was inspired by my brother, firstborn in my family, Robson. He's the one who encouraged me to write. So I used to write I used to be a member of the Writers Club at school, at Nyamauru. And then I started writing letters to the editor of the Manika Post. I used to contribute on social issues. I would write comment about social issues. I remember at one time I wrote to the Sunday Mail and I commented on Charles Mabika, that he was one of the finest football commentators.
Right.
And I wasn't too happy with Evans Mambara because he used too many military jargon which I didn't understand. And the letter was published in the Sunday Mail. And most of my letters to the editor were published in the Manika Post.
Nice.
So they knew me, but they didn't know who I was.
Right.
So I finished my Form 4. I had a chain of B's, English B, Shona B, History B. So they calculated your best 5 subjects. And I think so I had 5 B's, and I needed a place for A-level. And I couldn't get a place for A-level.
5 B's were not good enough.
Oh, they were not good enough because there weren't enough A-level schools then. So I went to Mutoko High School because my mom had been told kuti kune nzvimbo. Saka pa Mutoko High School confident kuti ndiri kutsvaga nzvimbo ndabva kwaMutare. Chichi chikanzi nzvimbo takatozara. Apa ndobva ndadzoka pamabhazi paMutoko paya paya. Ndobvunza namai vemusika kuti ndoda mabhazi ekuHarare zvikanzi mabhazi aenda. Saka ndakarara pamusika ipapo ndakamirira bhazi rekudzoka uko. Yeah, and then so I looked for a place. I couldn't find a place for Form 5.
Right.
Until I decided no, ndakuita night school. So Mutare Girls I was offering night school for A-level. But I dropped out because I couldn't sustain it.
What couldn't you sustain there?
Well, number one, kwenda kuchikoro usiku, and vanhu vandachifunda navo were not of my generation. So I just didn't find it interesting.
Yeah.
And when school always needs compatriots. So I'm not discussing now, and these were people coming from work, and I drop her. So one morning, my brother encouraged me that I must write to the Manika Post to say, so as a cub reporter, somebody who's learning how to write. Right. So my mother angasashandira photo studio, in Tony's photo studio in Mutare. So in the morning as she was going, I gave her this letter. She went and dropped it at the Manika Post. And then in the afternoon, I saw a Manika Post car park outside our gate.
Wow.
Yeah, so the driver had come with this letter that said I should go to see the editor.
This is same day?
Same day.
Nice.
Must go and see the editor. His name was Adam Hamiwe. He's late, and may his soul rest in peace. Adam Hamiwe invited me to come the following day. So I went to the Manika Post. As I arrived, I met a lady called Aida Kamushinda. And if you know Ozias Kamushinda,
yes,
that's the mother. She was also a journalist. So she then received me and says, I'm the one who sorts out all the letters to the editor. I'm surprised you're such a young man because the issues you tackled in your letters, and your English was never difficult to correct.
Right.
Grammar.
So they said, so they were very surprised. So they took me to Adam Hamiwe, the editor, and he met me and he said, we saw your letter. We already knew you. We didn't know what you are actually in high school. So yeah, we'll give you an opportunity. You come here and you work as a freelance cub reporter. So I said I would do it for free. They said no. What we would do is we will pay you, but we pay you as per your contribution. So every month end, I'll take a ruler, and then I would measure column centimeter.
Right.
And I think I was being paid 10 cents per column centimeter for all my contributions. So it was healthy money for somebody who hadn't worked. So that's how I actually got into the media. I was with Manika Post for 1 year.
And were you just commenting on current affairs issues, or you were specific as to what you were writing about? I
wasn't specific to a particular issue. I would just write about anything that was topical in the community. For instance, I remember Kudanga Mvura, there was a quarry nearby. So kwari aiputitsa ma explosives and aisheka dzimba dzavanhu kusvika dzaita macracks.
Right.
So I wrote to complain kuti kune kwari rikuita kuti dzimba dzavanhu dzisheke kunoku and something must be done. So that letter was published. That's an example of
All right.
some issue I addressed. And I'd write about anything basically that was being talked about in the community.
Right.
So I then worked for Manika Post for 1 year under Adam Huamiwe. And then I applied to Harare Polytechnic. They were offering a diploma in mass communication, which was the journalism school, the only journalism school outside of the Christian College of Southern Central Africa, COSA.
Yeah.
So the main journalism school was Harare Poly under the Division of Mass Communication. So because I had 1 year experience behind my belt, having worked for the Manika Post, I had been exposed to the newsroom, and I knew how to write stories, I knew how to do the headlines and things like that. I easily got a place at the Poly. And that was it. I became a student, and at the end of the 2-year program, I was the overall best student at Harare Poly in the program. Then I got the Zimpepers Award for the overall best student. And the award meant I could get a job at the Herald. Manika Post was obviously part of Zimpepers, Herald, Zimpepers, but it was more prestigious to be at the Herald. So I said, kuti ndichadzoka ku small town.
I ain't doing it. Right.
So that winner, overall best student, Zimpepers Award for the overall best journalism student. I went to the Herald and I said, I want to join the newsroom. Then they said, unfortunately, newsroom Yazara, the only position available to Business Herald. Are you interested in going to Business Herald? I said, yeah, I can try it. Then I went to Business Herald, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Was this all in written? This was now like written media. There was no radio, no television involved at this point?
There was. ZBC was the broadcast media of choice or only choice. And even at Poly, you had to make a choice whether you wanted to specialize in print or to specialize in broadcasting. I specialized in print. I loved broadcasting.
Right.
I knew I loved broadcasting. I knew I wanted to be on radio. I knew I wanted to be on TV.
Right.
And because when we grew up, we wanted to sound like Ruben Barwe. And he's been on the job for a long time. Yeah.
I'm thinking if you wanted to be like Ruben
I'm
Barwe,
telling you.
and then I came onto the scene and Ruben Barwe was still there. Like,
And he's still
how
on the
old
job,
is
right?
he?
He's still
Yes.
on the
No,
He's
you
still on the
got to
job.
give it to him. He's a legend. He's a legend. When I was Form 4, Form 3, I used to pretend I was Ruben Barwe reporting. So we were inspired by Ruben Barwe, and he's still inspiring so many. So big up
Ruben Barwe, ZBC News, Harare.
so big up to Ruben. So I chose to do print, and the reason I chose print was because I felt that the employment options were greater.
On print?
Yeah, on the
Okay.
print side, because
Okay.
there were many newspapers as opposed to just one broadcast channel.
Okay.
But it was, then the advice I also got was that it was always easier for a print journalist to migrate to broadcasting, but not so easy for a broadcast journalist to migrate to print journalism. So I decided, no.
Let me start where you-
So I started with the print option, and that's why I started doing all print stuff, and then later migrated to broadcasting. And it's a very funny story how I migrated, but let's talk about it later.
Okay.
Alrighty.
So is Manika Post Herald ZBC?
Okay, so Manika Post, then during training at Harare Poly attachment, I went back to Manika Post.
Right.
Graduation at Harare Poly, overall Best Journalism Student Award. The award was sponsored by Zimpepers. I decided I'll join the bigger brand in Zimpepers, which was the Herald. So I worked for the Business Herald for a very long time. Our editor was Fanny Mushaba. In fact, we actually had an interesting team of people, and we had funny names.
Funny super.
Our editor was Funny Mushawa.
Right.
And then one of our senior reporters was Hatred Zenenga. And then there was Supa Mandiwanzira. We all had these funny names there. Then we had Itai Masuku. We had Victoria Tapumane, who's now the editor of the Herald. During those days when I joined the Business Herald, so I got a lot of excellent training and advice from Fanny Mushava, from Itai Masuku, from Victoria, from Hatred, and I then began to like business reporting, and I found that it's very exciting. But it's just that you have fun or have get to in fact ndakurira kumusha. Then ndakapinda hometown sakuva then tikazoenda kudanga mvura saka nangu game rengutotsvaga mari and totsvaga mari sei. So Itai had a small camera, and aimbo filma his productions and weddings. So I said, ndipeka nditsvage basa ndinono filma wedding. No, you can take the camera if you have work. So this one day I took the camera, and I was shooting a wedding of some prosecutor at the courts Kudara. I think he's then moved, went out of the country to some place. So I'm filming this wedding, Marare Gardens. Another guy from ZBC was also filming the same wedding. Unbeknown to me, this guy was a producer at ZBC. He used to produce programs at ZBC. His name is Denford Denga. So Denford Denga,
legend.
Yeah,
Oh
legend.
wow! Oh wow!
Denford Denga is now in the UK.
Right.
Denford Denga says, so I introduced myself, the super, so, because we were both filming the wedding, so the one partner yangu. So he says, oh, you are super. I said, dude, I read your articles on Business Herald. I said, yeah, I'm the one. She goes, listen, super, I'm starting a show. It's a breakfast show called AM Zimbabwe. We're putting it together. Ndrukuda munu anoita money and money markets. Just a 5-minute show during the breakfast. Right. Have you watched CNN? I said, yeah, ndikaenda kuhama dzangu dzine satellite ndomboona CNN. Zikanzi, right. There's a guy called John Difterios on CNN. So to a show singing John Difterios.
Right.
Can you do it? I said, no, kando opportunity yangu. So he then invited me to do the preparations, and I was on TV. That's how I got into television and broadcasting. Thanks to Denford Denga.
Did you film Mamchat?
Did you film Mamchat?
And at Denford, wanopa more opportunity.
Like right now.
Nash, am I like?
No, 100%.
You know what I mean? It's a thing. It's a thing, Becky.
It is.
You get it?
Yes.
Oh, so that's beautiful, man. And then, of course, if we fast forward your career, you then became a correspondent for BBC, SABC, Summit TV, Al Jazeera, and so on. Did you ever imagine that you would get to those dizzy heights in broadcasting when you first?
I think I somehow imagined it. When I was at Harare Poly, one of the projects that we did, and that all courses at Harare Poly then, I think, and still now, used to do was a production of a newspaper, which they called then the Sharpener. So this was a student newspaper produced by the students. Mchapla knowledge madzidza. You go and do the stories in a rural community, and then in that you then had a page with the pictures of every student, and you'd say a few things about yourself on that caption of that picture.
Okay.
And I remember very well what I said about myself, and I said print journalist, but planning to get into broadcasting, CNN, BBC, check this out. So I kind of knew.
Like you spoke it into existence.
Give us a verse. Give us a verse about these visions. The guy saw it before it happened. Yeah?
In the book of Psalms, it says, you shall decree a thing upon this earth, and it will be established.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
He decreed it.
Hallelujah.
He spoke it into existence.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so when you mentioned Summit TV, you mentioned BBC, you mentioned all this. Actually, how I got there was that I worked for Herald. Then I went to do part-time breakfast television, AM Zimbabwe, ZBC. And then Chris Somo, who was the head of news and current affairs, said, we are introducing we are going to now put segments on our news. And we're going to put sports news, we're going to put business news. So we are recruiting business reporters. So we see you doing the breakfast show. Can you come on board?
Right.
So I said, this is the opportunity. Then I resigned my job at the Herald because I was doing just part-time the breakfast show, which was 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Then I go to Herald to do my job. So there was now an opportunity from 6 a.m., 8 a.m. Then I go to main job as a business reporter at ZBC. So I said, I'll take this up. So I was with Godfrey Mutizwa. I think now he's the editor at CNBC in South Africa.
Right.
Tamzai Jonera. I think Itai Masuko also later joined us there. So we had a couple of people in the business section. So I went and then I was doing business news for ZBC. So one day I got a call from some guys at the British Embassy. And they said they invited me to meet them. So I went. They were still at Corner House.
Right.
That's where the British Embassy was. So I got there. And the guys, two guys, I don't remember their names. Then they said to me, we're very impressed with what you do and your work on television. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to be advertising scholarships. And we would like you to apply. Which are now called the Shivening Scholarships. They said, we would like you to apply. I said, okay, I will apply. And then, unbeknown to me, so they were just talking to me generally. And now, because of my experience, I now realize, vanga to gather intelligence, kwandiri. Question your course will be, you go and do a master's for 1 year. When you come back, do you think President Mugabe will still be in the office? This was 1998, somewhere there.
Right.
And I said, oh, definitely he will still be in the office. I mean, I don't see anything that would change that. Yeah. He will definitely be in the office. We had a very interesting conversation, but I didn't know to pick up brain zangu paya. But anyway, so ndakataura zvinhu zvakazoitika kuti aiwa pandakadzoka and I went, I got so I applied for the scholarship. I was invited for interviews. I was exceptional in the interviews. I got a scholarship to go and do a master's. No. Well, most of the scholarships were to do a master's. But in that's in a first degree. Then you got in a diploma in mass communication.
Yeah.
Remember, I didn't do
A-level. Yeah.
So they said, no, you can go and do a post-graduate diploma. I said, fine, I have no problem. So I got a scholarship. 1998, I went to the UK, got a place at City University in London to do that program. So when I got there, we had students from Canada, the USA, we had British students, we had Pakistanis, we had Russians, we had there's a guy
all training in mass communication
doing that master's program. So
okay.
what the difference was, in Indanshita diploma program, I would do it in 9 months. The guys who were doing a master's would do it in 12 months because they would have to do a dissertation.
Right.
So I was in this class. The head of school was Heather Petty. She was the head of mass communication. So she knew I was on a diploma program. The majority of the students were on a master's program. But in class tests, in everything we did, I was on top of that class. So I was upgraded from a diploma to a master's. So I did a master's without a first degree.
That's amazing. And apana katengerwa doro.
And apana katengerwa doro chakwe.
Apana. Iko kwa masikatomutambire doro.
No brown envelope.
No brown envelope.
Like
so I was upgraded to the master's program. So I was very excited about that. So pakauya time for us to go on a attachment on internship. The ganzi choose kuti muda kuenda upi. I chose to go to CNN. So I went for an interview at CNN. CNN Business.
Right.
The Chicago CNN Business, they interviewed me. They said, okay, brilliant, we will take you in, but can I chuya unongwe jacket as well, just in case we want to put you on TV.
Right.
So I went back to school, told Heather Purdy, CNN were taking me in. Heather said, no, you can't go to CNN, go to Reuters. So I realized later, papane competition. The British wanted the best to be with British media organizations. So they didn't want you to go to an American organization, but this was CNN London.
Right.
So they didn't want me to go to CNN London, they wanted me to go to Reuters. So I went to Reuters Financial TV. It was later disbanded. But I learned a lot there because that's where I also got a lot of contacts in the financial and banking
But
sector.
whatever do you see in it?
Right.
That's why I'm here on this show.
On this show.
On the award-winning.
Award-winning Denny J show.
Why didn't you fight her decision or like her
choice?
Her choice, Kuti. No, don't go to CNN, go to Reuters. Why didn't you like Ayuasha?
I actually, you see, takakura kuno utine culture yekuti kana headmaster ataura challenge.
All right.
Saka tangori ne fear yekuti ukwanise challenge lecturer kana recommender. And I thought there was something nice in what she was suggesting. So ndakango accept that okay. Muri kundipika kuti ndisaenda kuCNN ndienda ku Reuters. And that's ku Reuters ngati ndoda zve business and finance. Ndo background yana andina ku business around. Ndobva watondi tienda ku RFTV, Reuters Financial Television. So ndokwandakaenda. So ina ndazomubvunza kuti say wakandikanyira opportunity yekuenda ku CNN, but I think I actually gained a lot. I learned a lot. I don't know if I would have gotten the same kind of exposure I got at CNN. So I don't know. But I just decided, yeah, it's a good thing I went there. While I was there, Financial Times and Times Media Limited of South Africa then were establishing a new channel, business channel called Summit TV. So earlier when I was here, time kakamboita hype yekuti uri journalist ukanopinda basa ku South Africa wayambuka waenda. So ndakanoenda ku South Africa ndichida kujoin a business day. Saka one of the editors ku business day anga ari Venon, a guy called Venon Metropolis. So Venon akazova ku Business Times vova set up business TV in the Summit TV. So they looked for me in London because he knew then I had moved to school to London. So we my stories from London. So no impact channel we have a correspondent in London. So at that particular time, a lot of South African companies were moving their listings on the Joburg Stock Exchange, going to list on the London Stock Exchange. So I would go and interview some of the chairpersons and CEOs of these companies because they would arrange the interviews in South Africa. But they needed the idea that they have presence in London with the correspondent.
And you were there already.
So I was there already. So that's what I used to do. So I used to go and do these reports. They would package them and then we send them to South Africa. That's how I got into Summit TV. And then while I was there, because I was on a student visa, so every Tuesday, there's one of the daily newspapers called The Guardian. A supplements Guardian Media. They would advertise all media jobs in that supplement. So the BBC World Service was advertising for producers for their Africa service. So I just say funny, so go apply. And I want to join. Then want to interview because I'm a student. This is a full-time job. They won't give me. So I didn't even go for an interview. Then I got a call that afternoon. This white guy says, Dr. Hon Supa Mandiwanzira ngasikataura akishona. Asa akataura nini.
In his language.
In his language. So he says, is that Supa? I said, yeah, this is Supa. He says, how come you didn't come for an interview? Then I said, I didn't think that I would make it. She goes, no, you should come. He says, my name is Robin White. So Robin White was the head of the BBC Focus on Africa service. So I went the next day, and then they gave me a job. So I was still a student, and then I got this job, And then they said, but because you are still a student, you must only work so many hours a week. So because you are limited in number of hours you could work.
Yeah.
So that's what I then started doing. But at the end of my student visa, I'd have to leave the country.
Right.
So I worked briefly for BBC World Service. It wasn't an internship. I applied for a job. They invited me for an interview, and I got in on the basis of merit. And I worked to produce some of the programs that we were producing there with some of very renowned producers, Ben Malo, and a lot more others who became very successful. There's a guy from Kenya, I forget his name during those days. So that's how I worked for BBC World Service. Then I came back. I had an obligation to save ZBC at least for 6 months because I had gone on a student, I'd gone on a study leave kind of. So I must come back and serve ZBC for a minimum period. Right. I came, but now with a lot of these qualifications, I could now go and look for a job in South Africa. Right. But when I went to the UK, I was running for a brain. I just said, but why should I go and look for a job in South Africa? I can go and do Zimbabwe. Right. So I went back to ZBC, but media house.
Of course.
Yeah, but now no.
I can do this thing, man.
So I must go and do that. So I came back and worked for ZBC, and then I set up a briefcase company, right, called AB Communications. So our very first event, we did a conference at Miko's Hotel, which is now what's the new name?
Hyatt Regency.
Hyatt Regency, yeah, you know it.
Brenda Bazard.
So I put up an event with my brother Robson. So we put up an event. It was called Private Equity Finance for Privatization. Game privatization achipisa. Right. No, ngatingoita chinhu chinongoita kuti vanhu vabhadhare kuuya.
So information
tozodila nacho later. So we designed a nice brochure. We said, but kuti chiite attraction, ngatidaidze vanhu vanozikanwa vanotaura. Yeah, so the speakers, some of the speakers were Thuli Ncube. He was running
the bank.
He hadn't set up the bank, but he was a sharp financial. I'd come across him in my business reporting at ZBC, right. And I said, this guy is extremely sharp. Right. So I used to go to him to give me analysis of many issues on the economic front, on the business front,
right.
And it was exceptional. I remember one story I did where he said, Nika, I know I have a problem with Forex. There's more than $1 billion sitting outside. That money should be in this country, and we will not have a shortage. And he would give that analysis and break it down. Right. So I knew him, so we invited him to be a speaker. Strive Masiwa, we invited him to be a speaker.
What year was this?
That was 2001.
Okay.
He didn't have a license that he was still fighting for.
No, I to apply a bank. I got to bank.
I got to retrofit.
Strive had just been licensed, I think, at that time. So we invited him to be a speaker. We invited James Mshore. He was with NMB Bank. He was second in charge there after Julius Makoni. We invited Mutumwa Mawere to be one of the speakers.
How were you able to, because of your clout from?
Because of my network at ZBC, right, because I was a business reporter, so I knew everybody in business.
Because these are heavyweights.
Yeah, these were heavyweights. So we said if we put, then the other one was a very interesting guy, Akazo, Astanga political party, he was Batanai Capital Finance. And then he became Minister of Industry, and then I got to resign out of South Africa. So. Kosana Moya. Yeah, he was also one of the speakers at that conference. So ukatarisha makareka atakatora. I have now one reputation yezavo. One brain nechi. So we put together that, and Sifa Sipa was the Minister of Indigenization, so he headlined that, and it was super successful by our own standards. So we said no. Let's keep doing these things. So that's how I started the AB Communications Company. And then down the line,
were you still at the were you still working for
ZBC.
For ZBC?
Yeah, made in the at Mawantitaure pambe Milani Bomagazine.
Maita my big door business.
What would happen, man? Ndakubasa ndarowa AM Zimbabwe yangu ndapedza ndapinda main basa rangu reporting
right
ndapedza kuma 6 ndoenda tatine maoffice Fidelity Lifestyle atatori maoffice ipapo ikonetenge ne maoffice ipapo and other guys atori ne maoffice ipapo saka ndo patainorowa usiku kusvika kuma 12 tichirowa ndima saka we worked many jobs but aita within the time frame
allocating your time fairly right
so we did that and then a tender. The new airport. The airport had just been revamped, and vavachida publicity. Kuti vanhu vafile kuti hurumende yaitachi did a good job.
Yeah.
Saka ndobva vaenda kutenda kuti kuda company inoitachi it's a publicity and project the new airport in good light.
Right.
So in briefcase company yangu vataisa bid. The company yangu vataisa bid. ZBC over as a bid. Briefcase company over a winner. Man, you know the game rashad up and up. Saka
believe this for ZBC.
No, what happened was, you see, I guess it was also because I knew what needed to be done because of my exposure and experience. And I wanted to happen because you can't compete with.
Did they know you were having this AB communications on the side?
They knew, but see, because we were so naive, what should have actually happened is that I should have written to management and say, I want you to know that this is what I'm doing. And I say this as advice to those who run their own businesses while they are working elsewhere.
Yes.
You ought to declare. With
it won't always come out. It won't always end well.
Yeah. Well, if you're not, yeah, it won't always end well. I should have done that, but I didn't do that, and of course I blame myself because I think that was very unprofessional at that point. But I was young and naive.
So that letter is only important. Asking for someone else. So that letter is only important if you're in the same line of work as the place that you're working for, right?
I think in all circumstances,
okay.
Because I think at some point you're going to use someone's phone or resources,
someone's
to
Wi-Fi.
run your someone's Wi-Fi to run your side show.
Yeah,
so it's always good to declare that this is what I'm doing on the side, and there is always a compromise on how you can do it and compensate.
I personally wouldn't advise people to do that because it's too risky.
Yeah, it's too risky. But
because whenever people start their own business, they will start it while they're still at work.
Yeah.
And then when they see it's picking up, then they can leave work. Yeah. So now if you start off and then you declare that you're too ambitious. They don't like ambition. Most of the employers don't like too much ambition.
Yeah, be ambitious, but not too ambitious. So did they let you go easy?
No. So then what happened was, when I had the news that we were getting the contract to do this new publicity for the new airport, I knew communication had gone to the head of television services. And I'd then heard from somebody who was in the circles, good, how can they give to Supa? I then put my resignation
very fast.
Very fast. So that's how I then left to focus full time on the business, on AB Communications business. But I'd also realized, Guti, there's potential. And it was at a time when I think there was a realization among the black business people and executive managers that it was crucial to support other black people in business.
Right.
So there was just a new wave of black people who were getting into business or black executives working for multinationals who were looking for other blacks to support. So I got at the right time. So I left and then started focusing full time on AB Communications.
Right.
And while I was at it, I established very good relations. I used to do a lot of work for NMB Bank.
Okay.
Guys were extremely supportive. And I'm always very proud and very grateful. And I'm always eternally grateful to people like Julius Makoni, people like I mentioned him, the one who was speaking at our conference, James Mshore. And then I had a very good relationship with the guy who was behind Time Bank, Takura Tande. They gave me a lot of support. I had a very good relationship with Gideon Gono at CBZ, gave me a lot of support. I had a very good relationship with Enoch Kamushinda at the Metropolitan Bank, gave me a lot of support. I mean, I knew everybody in the market. So each time I knocked on their door, they
were like really happy
they were happy to support because they knew I was capable of delivering. And they also liked business. So that's how I grew.
So what's the lesson there for you? What can people take from that? Connections are very important, and what lesson can we draw from your success? Because for you to succeed, it's all these people.
It needs people, yeah.
Yeah,
it's all these people.
So this is what I've said to many people who trash ZBC. When I worked for ZBC on the breakfast show, when I worked as a business reporter, when I worked as a news reader, we didn't earn a lot of money. I remember one day, so I got to United Theological College, ku Ep.65. One day, kwira makombi pa chicken in town pa ne joiner center pa
Fantasyland.
Exactly. So ndakwira lift ipapo. So ndikumanyira lift, some guy akandiziva.
Super.
Jonazi yo super tenga wa motor man. We didn't have enough money.
That's always the fear when you're in media.
In the media.
Oh my God.
They think you're very rich.
Oh, they think you are very rich.
Yo.
But to go back to your question, I think you asked me, what was the... I think a lot of people have trashed ZBC. For me, ZBC was my stepping stone to who I eventually became. Was it not for the opportunity I got from ZBC to be on air, to be a reporter, I would have not established the relations I did. And this is what I tell even my work colleagues at AB Communications. You're on ZiFM, you're on Hopewell, you're on 98.4. Don't expect a lot of money from there, but use the platform to create the relationships.
Amen.
And make money out of the platform.
True story.
But when you expect Danny J and a big check for being on his show.
Thank you. Please.
On so many occasions, we told Becky
Can I buy you a drink?
Wait. Nesh, you said what?
I'm saying on so many occasions, we've told these people that this is a platform to grow, Becky and Marco. Becky, now you're famous, you're popping from this show.
Bako Media was recently in Dubai. They're seeing his work through the Denny J show.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm not dealing for Donita put people.
I was polish the brand.
Well done.
My work here is done.
Your work is done. We're out.
So the lesson is, wherever you are, use it as an opportunity to grow yourself.
True story.
I was very hardworking at ZBC, and it opened so many doors. I would go and meet Julius Makoni. I would go and meet Gideon Gono. The only reason they would open their doors was like, the business reporter girl. We need to have a good relationship with him. So the opportunity I got from ZBC, I would have never gotten that opportunity from anywhere else to catapult me to where I am. So I think that for me, I'm very grateful that I got that opportunity. So that's number one. Number two, there's nothing we can ever achieve without relationships. Relationships are so important. And I've realized one thing, Danny. I meet somebody today. We exchange cards. We casually talk. 5 years down the line, that's so crucial. So it's important that when you meet people, you keep their contacts and stay in touch. Hello.
Sustain the relationship.
Sustain the relationship.
Yeah. Appa, you haven't spoken to Denny.
I think we must charge people, man. All the knowledge that they're getting from the show, man. Nash, is there a way to, to get people to subscribe and pay us something?
Definitely.
Subscription fee. So when you got into the media world, into broadcast, that was like many years ago.
Absolutely.
The dynamics were different as to what is happening now. looking at yesteryears and now, how different is the broadcast terrain?
Broadcasting yedu isusu yamazuva edu
Talk to us.
akusisina because everybody is now a broadcaster. Okay, we're here in the Denny J studio and we're broadcasting. Okay, and munarwacha right now ask me out 8 it's a child and this switch on to the Denny J show.
It's on demand.
It's on demand. So it is completely revolutionized television. When we had television during our days when we got into the business, when we got into the industry, taimirira muswe Saturday kuma 5 kuti tuone WWF, wrestling, and you could only in fact ndaigara kudanga mvura and unazam township une noise,
right?
But Saturday kuma 5 mnemati zi vanhu vapinda mudzimba. Isusu we didn't have a TV saka inoona ku next door. That I'm going to pinda ikoko. Unse murodi mese mati zi because unoda kuona WWF, unoda kuona wrestling.
Right.
So that was the impact of television. That was the impact of broadcasting. When we grew up, we had real celebrities. My radio presenter, Teach Mataz,
Oh yeah.
Peter Jones, and then takatanga radio yedu takauya naye the hitman Hosea Singende. The hitman Hosea Singende. Between the ears.
Yes.
So they made real big names because people listened to radio and they had only one source of entertainment here, radio. And when Teach was coming to play in Mutare, you'd know the show is sold out because it will be the game in town.
Right.
Broadcasting was different. Today, you have multiple radio stations. So you have ZiFM, you have Power FM, you have where you Carpet Talk, you have
like
Star FM.
Like where you're at.
Where you are.
Yo, boss.
I didn't even know why you left ZiFM because ZiFM doing ASM.
Now, Capital Group, but then biggie. Capital.
They're looking after me. I've got no complaints.
Nice.
While no disrespect, it's a very good radio station.
However.
I have no however.
Okay.
I think Biggie needs to come back to CFM.
Nash.
I think Becky should come back. I think.
Becky needs to come
can you
back
vote?
You know what I mean? Because at Capital, I think they're taking good care of her. And also, when she left ZiFM to go to Capital, she wasn't as big as she is now.
Yeah.
Becky's now a big deal. You know, Becky? Thanks to Nash.
Foundation is always important.
Foundation is always important. I will say ZiFM did look after me. They taught me, the things that I needed to know, the fundamentals of radio. And I remember every time when I would see Supa at work.
Supa or boss?
Yeah,
I know Supa.
Supa.
We call him Supa. We call him Supa. Every time when I would see him, I would run away. I'd be like, oh, snap, that dude again. Because what he would do is he would walk in and the first thing he'll ask you is, what's happening in current affairs? And you're like, I don't know. Then it's like, read the newspaper. People here must know what's going on. What is it that you'll be talking about on radio? So he would then listen to what I was doing on radio and then he will give me feedback. Well done, Appa, but Appa, why did you do that? Well done here. Oh, that interview with your dad, that was really cool. But put more Ndebele because of this. And
So he was a nosy boss.
No, not nosy. You see, the honest truth is that the people who are there have high expectations of people who are on radio. They believe that people who are on radio know more than they do. And they believe it is their right to know more from radio, from the presenters, than they would know from elsewhere. So you can only present and you are not informed. What are you going to tell the people? You ought to have something that you know that people don't know so that they listen to you. Right. Why do people listen to the show? Because they get things that they don't know. And why do people listen to radio? Why do they turn on to radio? Because they want to hear more things. They want information. So you can also know information. Yeah. So it was my way of saying to people, be better. Always be better.
Yeah.
And the biggest room.
And I'm watching.
Yeah.
And he was watching.
The biggest room, the biggest room in the world is room for improvement. It's like even when you know you are the best, there's room for improvement.
True. Yeah. So AB Communications is formed. You're just doing these events, and then the opportunity comes.
So we're just doing these events, and we're also doing corporate videos.
Right.
We're also doing documentaries for companies.
So you have some sort of a studio.
Yeah, we have some sort of studio on Samora Machel. So we're doing
An agency per se.
yeah, sort of, but we were more on the production side.
the production
so
side,
the agencies
okay.
would come to us and say, you know what, this company would like a documentary short, and we're able to do it, then we'll go in and do it. Or there will be a product launch, and they say, can you package it for us so that we have a video that we play to our customers,
Right.
or that we play in our banking hall.
Right.
So that's what we were doing. And then I had one of my classmates, Peggy Bandam Vududu, was working for Mighty Movies. Mighty Movies was the biggest game in town in terms of TV production.
All
it
the
was,
big ads.
Yeah, all the big ads were
done
that.
by
Yeah,
Mighty Movies.
they were done by Mighty Movies. So there were 4 guys there: Steve Moyo, 3 white guys, and three white guys. Paul Hughes was well known of them. He was sort of the managing director. So Jevin Dore was one of them. So Peggy comes to me and says, "Are you aware that Mighty Movies is up for sale?" I said, "Oh, really?" They said, "Yeah, they're selling Mighty Movies." I said, "Oh, why would they sell Mighty Movies?" They said, no, I think the pressure is too much. They want to get out. They want to make their money, take their money, and walk away.
And go, yeah.
Right. So I said, "Go and tell Paul Hughes I'm interested in buying the business." So Peggy arranges a meeting with the Paul Hughes. Paul Hughes says, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm very serious. I want to buy." Abandangana send.
Abana cash.
Abandangana cash.
Zilch, zero.
So let's go to Paul. Paul says, "Yeah, we will sell the business to that $250,000." They had $250,000.
Got it.
This was 2001. That's when I came back. 2002, 2003.
That's probably about 1.4 million.
Yeah. So,
Today, it's
so
also like, wow.
I said, "Okay, what's there?" Well, she for 250,000. No, we have the house. The house where they were operating from will be part of the sale.
The building is there.
Yeah, the building. The building is part of the cell. This
250,000.
Yeah,
with
at that
the
time.
building.
It was serious money.
Yeah,
serious
so
money,
it
yeah.
included the building. I said, fantastic. I said, okay, and then koku business because me muri varungu. So muri pure business then because muri varungu because it's about relationships. Saka ndikatora chinhu ka ma advertising agency esanvatiza because ari control nevarungu. You can't know tine contract ne SABC ye news but yaka expire. Ndikati all right deal. Inini ndiri kuda kutenga but subject to renewal of the contract with SABC re news.
It have to delete it.
It have to delete it. You can't say bo. So in that Torah agreement of sale, maburu angu ari kumabhengi ndabata takura tande time bank ndikati mudara paita deal and I need your support. I've never asked for this kind of support but I need it now.
Right.
Zvikanzi chii ndikati no ndoda kutenga zvikanzi co-security ndikati aiwa building yacho kutengeswa futi mobata building security.
Financial engineering.
Yeah.
Done.
Done deal. No, but that's how I got into this. So they gave me a loan.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I said no, but I want to make sure the deal they say BC sign.
Right.
So Paul says no, we will agree to the condition of renewing the SABC contract.
Right.
Because it was a good contract. They were paying, I think they were paying $1,200, $1,400 per story out of Zim. And they had a minimum retainer of 12 stories.
Wow.
Okay.
Per month. So they had
They
to
are
do
guaranteed.
to guaranteed whether mazoita 12 kana mina yaizongoya mari yetu. So I said bo hande tino negotiate. Zvikanzi hande tese vatano kuintroduce. Saka vanarohwa nemunyati manje tasvika ikoko Paul Hughes ambotanga adhira neboys rake varungu vake tazopinda mumeeting zvikanzi aiwa bo tiri kurenewa contract apa nziziva kuti Paul arohwa dhiri rekuti akupai discount from 1,200 or 400 to 800 per story but dhiri tasaina dhiri wariona tadeliver
Radona 30%.
adona and hazvina basa mari iripo chete. That is how I got that deal because anyway I was comfortable with at least take a push up my stories we will be able to pay off part of the loan from the revenues that we were going to get into the business. That's how then I got into Mighty Movies. Now, Mighty Movies had the relationships with all the news agencies.
Is that your current HQ now?
No, what then happened was that they were in Newlands on Cambridge Avenue. Later on, I come across another opportunity in Newlands to buy what used to be called Central Film Laboratories. Right. So that's where I am now.
Okay. Right.
So anyway, when we signed the deal, Mighty Movies was doing business not just with SABC. They would get calls from Reuters to say to do footage. Let me tell you one thing. Pangemre news ne media munainze Robert Mugabe akajikisa vanhu vemedia because varongo vaida kunzodari kuti kudii. Each time aingonotaura vari tikuda mafootage yake.
And they were willing to pay for it.
They were willing to pay for it. So we made a lot of, I mean, the international media made a lot of hay to cover our former president. So we were getting calls, say, from TV New Zealand. I remember TV New Zealand came to us and they wanted some footage in wildlife. So we would go and put together wildlife and they would pay us good money. We're doing APTV, Associated Press Television. We gave them material. Reuters TV, we gave them material. So we're always getting these inquiries. Guys wanted footage. And at that point, the Ministry of Information was very strict. They didn't want foreign crews coming into this country. So it empowered us. It empowered us as locals.
People for content.
Yeah, no, they had to come to us with to the content. Yeah. So that's how we got empowered as a result, and that's how we were able to pay our loan for buying Mighty Movies, and that's how we created the relationships with the SABC. SABC was our customer, and they also wanted me to report, so I reported for SABC using Mighty Movies as a platform. Then Al Jazeera was about to be launched, and so we got a call from a guy who used to run ITV News. Because Al Jazeera, when they set up, they hired a lot of crew who used to work for Channel 4 in the UK. They were the guys who went to Doha, to Qatar, to start Al Jazeera. So they contacted us, they wanted footage, they also wanted reports from Zim. Then they gave us a contract to report from them. So I was their correspondent in Zim. So if you go on YouTube and you look for Super Al Jazeera, you see some of the reports there that I used to do when I was working for Al Jazeera.
Nice. The opportunities just...
They were like interlinked, but I also think it was because he had prepared for them. If he hadn't started writing the articles, Polytech, the diploma, going to the UK postgraduate, and then being promoted to do the masters, all those things, like he was literally setting himself up. Favor ain't fair.
You know what?
Favor
what
ain't
I think?
Fair.
I think his mom's prayers. I think that's what opens all these doors.
Look at you.
No, but I'm being for real. Like the mom's prayers.
That's very deep. Nash is right.
Yeah.
Nash is right.
It's what opens all these doors. So when you don't take care of your mom, and you not success, Mawan.
Hanzi mudzimu weshiri rumudendere ungodzoka ikoko uchingoti amo mudzimu rubohera wakazadza mota nemagrosari uzvovhurika.
What are your views on Christianity?
That's a very interesting question. I believe there are many religions in the world, and I'll give you some examples of some of them. Christianity is one religion. Hinduism is another religion. Buddhism is another religion. So many religions in the world.
Right.
If I Muslim, another religion. If I listen to Muslim clerics, when they preach, they don't denigrate the Buddhists. They don't say anything negative about the Buddhists.
Right. True.
When you listen to the Buddhists praying, they don't denigrate
Very
the Christians.
Positive, actually.
They don't denigrate the Christians. I'm a Christian myself, or I would like to believe I'm a Christian myself, but I find it difficult that it does not recognize another religion. Chivanhu chedu is a religion. So people believe they speak to God through different ways. So I see in our society that Christianity inovayati munhu arikuita religion yechivanhu. Hazvitoiti ndo madhimoni ndochi. But ukaenda ku-constitution yedu inoita kuti munhu ese ane freedom of what? Of freedom of worship. Saka munhu akafunga kuti iye kutaura naMwari kuisa fodya pasi ari pasi pemuchakata. Ndo zvaanobhelievha. Leave them to do that. And munhu akafunga kuti kuenda kuchechi kubata bhaibheri kunamata musiki through Jesus ndo zvinoita kuti Mwari amunzwe. Allow them to do that. Munhu akafunga kuti ndoda kuita muchawa Muslim ndinopinda mosque ndichinamata Mwari wangu through Prophet Muhammad. Let them do that. But position yangu inoona kunge Christianity inozvidza other religions, particularly African religions. I've never had the Christianity attack my Buddhists or criticize my Muslims or criticize other religions as much as they criticize the African religions. And that's no my point of departure in Christianity. But otherwise, I believe I am a Christian myself. But I also am very alert and alive to the realities of our societies. Pane zvakanaka in every religion. Pane zvakaipa in every religion.
It's interesting that you give that perspective, and I totally get you. We had Mono Mukundu the last episode.
Before you go, I must just say, I'm thoroughly impressed by Mono Mukundu. His views, his approach to life, and is brilliant. He's such a gem, and I think he can be given platforms to do far much more in this country. Is such a brilliant mind. I'm very, very impressed.
Deep, and you find like what you mentioned. There's so many religions, and he was talking about mental slavery. The fact that when white people came, they brought Christianity with them, and then people were quick to believe it because Christianity is organized. They've got the Bible, they've got reference. If you have a problem, there's a reference, there's a verse somewhere that will, speak to your problem. And it's packaged in such a way that it's very difficult to not buy into it. But it's also important to have, different perspectives, like what Mono Mukundu brought on the show. His stuff is very researched with regards to whatever he's saying. He has taken a lot of time to research how the Bible came about and all these sort of things. And I was speaking to him just yesterday, and he was saying, I'm getting so many threats from prophets and apostles. And they're saying, God is going to fix you. And he was saying to them, look, all the stuff that I was talking about on the Denny show, I've been saying it. And I've been saying it for years. It's just that now...
Why now?
It's just that now you've got to hear of it because of the platform. Maybe, more people are exposed to it because he was on our show.
Yeah.
But he was saying, I've been doing it. And if God wanted to punish me, I'm sure by now he would have punished me. So it's interesting. Great. And I think people must, be open to giving other people platforms so that, we can share ideas and get perspective.
No, absolutely. I think the key is to acknowledge that Denny zvakatosiyana. Denny anogona kubhelievha chivanhu chake. Kuti ni anoenda kumusha anobika doro achipembedza maancestor ake. And Denny achibva ikoko zvinhu zvake zvinomufaira. Ngaaite zvaanoita izvozvo. Inini ndiri mufundisi ndokuparidzira bhaibheri ndosapota kuti uya kuchechi siyana nezvemachira ana Denny. I must be able to...
be allowed to do that.
Yeah, I must be able to do that, but I must not say sirane machirana dan. Just say, no, zvana dan izvi. Gavaitewo zvavo kana vachibhelievha. Ngatite izvi zviri muBhaibheri ndo zvinotiyambutsa. Just the respect of other people's religions. Just the respect of the Constitution.
True.
That we have everybody has a right of...
That's it.
All right, Elder. AB Communications. Taita madiri my lighters. Big deal comes through. Right? An opportunity comes. We need. I don't know. Was it 2 national radio stations? What was it? What was the?
Oh yeah. Okay. So The country had never had private broadcasting.
Yes.
It was always ZBC, the national broadcaster. And everybody was always, like people from the industry were saying, we need an opportunity in this country to have private players, private radio stations and stuff like that. And government responds. They call out, we want applications for radio licenses. We are going to give 2.
Right.
Okay? So, because in the background, the media,
Right.
I worked for ZBC. I've had extended the BBC World Service. I've been to Al Jazeera. I've done all these things. I'm like, no, this is my opportunity. I got to go for this.
Right.
But I realized, Kuti,
This was, what year was this when this opportunity came? 20?
this is about 12 years ago. Okay, so let's go back 12 years ago.
2012.
2012.
Around
Yeah,
there.
that's 2012. Yes. Then they say, okay, so we want applications. And then I realized, Kuti, if I'm going to make a difference, I will have to do something exceptional. The reason why people want something new or fresh is because they're used to the ZBC style. They would rather have a different style. But to be fair, the expertise we have in broadcasting is all from ZBC. Saka, I ought to do something out of this world. So I decided I was not going to hire experts from ZBC to help me put together a business plan or a document on a new radio station. I went to South Africa and I hired KPMG. The head of media services for KPMG, a gentleman called Quentin Green, had been a CEO at SABC at some point. So I said, there's this opportunity. We want to apply for a radio license in Zimbabwe, but we would like to obviously do something exceptionally different so that we offer Zimbabweans a very different product. Because if we go with the same style that's there, which is what people have been exposed to, then we're not going to make a difference. Yeah. And Quentin was excited about the opportunity. He said, fine, let's do it. I was working with a very knowledgeable and very hardworking lady called Susan Makore. She's worked for ZBC. She's trained media. She's taught at the university. Now she's the Zimbabwe Media Commission, and she's working for One Infra. So she was working with me at AB Communications then. So we flew to South Africa, spent a whole weekend with Quentin Green at his house, working out a plan.
Pese batiri kuita izvi cash tinayo cash iripo here yedhiri
Cash hapana. Cash hapana, but ndane faith. Because ndakambopinda mudhiri rekutenga maiti movies tisina cash. Saka I now know that you don't need money in order to do big deals.
Yeah.
You just need grace. So we spent the weekend in South Africa crafting this business plan, preparing to come to Zim and pitch. And because the application for a radio license or TV license is actually a public process.
Right.
Munotoenda ku public hearing. Motopresenta pamberi pevanhu vanoda kuuya, and they will ask you questions in that platform. So I brought Quentin as one of my co-presenters at the HICC where the bidding was taking place. And we were competing with very strong heavyweights in terms of media. The late Oliver Mtukudzi was part of one bid. They were applying separately. The late Douglas Munatsi, who was then CEO of Bank ABC, was also applying. Ourselves. Then there was Zim Papers. And so it was very huge competition.
Right.
But I knew we had prepared well because I had gotten out of this environment, go and look at experts or outside to help us create a product that will be international. Right. And one very interesting thing that Quentin told me as we were putting up the proposal, and he said, Supa, radio is a fantastic opportunity. You can make money from radio, but the real money is not made from radio. It's made from what you do using radio.
Right.
That's where my belief lies that if you are like Becky or on Carpet Talk or on ZiFM, the opportunity does not lie with you earning a salary or an amount from those stations. It lies from how you use the opportunity.
So what does he mean?
He meant that. He said, "Have you imagined how much companies spend in terms of their marketing budgets on radio?
Right.
And why do they spend that amount of money? It's because they can make more money. It's a small fraction of what they spend on radio. They actually make money in their main business.
Right.
So let's look at an insurance business, for instance. An insurance business will spend a lot of money advertising on radio so that it can get more and more customers.
Right.
So, but their money is not on radio. Their money is on the customers coming onto their books. So that's where the money is. It's on other businesses that leverage on the opportunity to be heard, to be known.
Right.
Yeah. So if I wake up tomorrow and I say, Denny, you're in good business, good entertainment business, so you're opening in this wonderful club. So I'm going to advertise the club, and we're going to do a partnership. You don't have to pay me for putting it all on ZiFM.
But I want in.
On Hopewell, but I want in. So you will have carte blanche opportunity to place all your adverts. So we make more money by selling alcohol. We make more money by people getting into the show because they are knowing about the club through the radio. We're pushing, your DJs are coming on the radio and showcasing for 5 minutes what they're going to be doing in the club. So we use radio to make money elsewhere. So that's I caught that. I got that lesson there.
Nice.
That Mari aitwe pa radio. Radio no pa platform you could do more money elsewhere. Saka nikafunga kuita zvimwe zvinhu. Nikafunga kuita set up insurance, nikafunga kuvhura supermarket, techingo manya mari ikoko, chingoshandisa radio because they are a captive audience kudara. So that was the plan. So we came and we presented, and there we got the license.
So I like how simple you make it.
I know, right? And then we presented, and then
we
got the license.
So why are we not talking about the Zanu PF aspect? A lot of people believe that Supa Mandiwanzira got this license because he is Zanu PF, and it's a reasonable, way to look at it, because media has been locked up for so long.
Absolutely. Well,
and these old guys, they are not very comfortable with people they don't know having people's ears.
And at what point?
So you are a safe. You are a safe bet. If we give Supa this license, Supa is not going to do funny stuff.
Okay, I think that's a simplified way of looking at it. I think for the last almost an hour, we've been talking about my media credentials. What I've been able to do, what I've trained in, what I've done, setting up a media company, setting up a production or buying a production house, working in London, the BBC World Service, doing correspondence for Summit Television, working for Al Jazeera. I actually think I deserve. There's nothing very disheartening like being told you cannot do this because you're Zanu PF. Because there is quite a similar response when people are told you cannot do this because you're Triple C. And I think at some point we ought to accept we have brilliant people in different political affiliations who can add value to our country and to our society in a specific area of their training. And I believe that by setting up ZiFM, by having won the license to set up ZiFM, we have demonstrated that we got a license on the basis of merit, and given the success that we've been able to achieve with the station and ultimately other stations, we have demonstrated that this was not granted on the basis of party affiliation, but on the basis of
merit.
On the basis of capacity and capability. And that's my response to those who say, Wakawana because you're Zanu PF. I didn't have a position in Zanu PF. I have always believed in Zanu PF. I have always been a supporter of Zanu PF, an active supporter of Zanu PF.
And that's as far as you went at that time? You were not part of the party at all?
I was not in any structure. I didn't have any position. But even if I had a position, I don't think you should be disqualified to exercise your right to do business in this country because of a political affiliation. I believe, I'm sorry to interject you, but I believe that we got a license based on our ability, and we went out of our way to hire the best experts in the region. who could help us put a winning document and also a winning presentation. And I know this speculation was there. Happy your license because it's Zanu PF. Zanu PF. Well, I can tell you, among our listeners are people who don't support Zanu PF, and they like to listen to the station. We're a business, not a political channel. We're a business, and we give everybody a platform to air their views when it's current affairs. But we play music from everyone. We play music from Winky D, we play music from Japreza, we play music from Anand Blazo, which thing is the
I don't think anyone can argue with regards to your credentials.
Right.
Right. You've achieved so much in this field, and you're very qualified. But then when you look at, say we look at Alpha Media Holdings, for example, they are also very qualified.
Absolutely.
But the problem is they are perceived to be anti-establishment. So if we get two people who are both qualified,
right,
is it not reasonable to then say, well, Supa is a safer bet?
Okay, here comes the story. Alpha Media is known for print journalism.
Right.
Is known for newspapers. Supa Mandiwanzira is known for radio production, known for television, and we're giving a license for broadcast. Where does it go? It goes to the person who has experience in broadcasting. That's number one. Number two, the process of giving out licenses is a public process. Every Zimbabwean has a right to go and sit in there and ask questions that they want. They are part of the judges in terms of who gets a license. And we were exposed to that entire process. And we came out clean in terms of that entire process. And if you want us to go further and argue, I would tell you today that Gerald Molochwa, the lawyer, is a partner in AMH. He's a partner of Trevor Ngube in AMH. Who's Gerald Molochwa? Do your research.
Yeah, he's related to the president. He's the, is he son-in-law?
Yeah. So it cannot be that these things were being granted on the basis of, who's a safer bet. It's really who is capable, because I believe that meritocracy is what takes us somewhere as a country. And I think on that basis, we have demonstrated. Because I think we can talk and we can, give positions, and I can argue. At the end of the day, people must judge us by what we have put out there through ZiFM. Okay. Does it reflect capability? Has it given opportunity to all Zimbabweans? Has it exposed young talent and made them into big names? I think we have done so, and we have not asked for their political cards when they walk in the gate.
Okay. But at ZiFM, are we pro or anti? I mean, I don't know how I can say this. I've never had anything anti-government at ZiFM. Is it?
Are you truly independent?
To respond to your question, I don't go and look for people who will say something anti-government. I look for people who represent different views in society. That's why Tendai BT has been a guest on ZiFM. That's why Nelson Chamisa has been a guest on ZiFM. That's why the cabinet ministers have been guests on ZiFM. That's why Chris Mchwangwa, the spokesman for Zanu PF, has been a guest on ZiFM. I'm not responsible for what they say. So if Chamisa comes on ZiFM and does not attack President Mnangagwa, I must be accused that he didn't attack because he was on ZiFM. No, I believe that the platform must be granted to anyone and everyone who would like to have access to Zimbabweans. And we've given them access, everybody.
So will you have Hopewell Chingwano on the station?
Let me tell you my history with Hopewell Chingwano. Oil!
Hey, drink up.
Hopewell wants an audience. He wants to come to ZiFM. Will you host him?
The short answer is yes. Hopewell Chingwano was my buddy, very, very close buddy for many years. Mm-hmm. When I arrived at Harare Poly to study journalism, my first day at Harare Poly, we walked into the broadcast studios of the mass communication department. And I walked into one of the rooms. There was this light in complexion, tall guy who was playing dancehall music. And I said, I'll play music yangu gawa. That's how we connected. Pandakaenda ku London kuchikoro. Hopewell housed me in his house. Because it's still save a man. So nandipa scholarship but big ras na kunyazokura scholarship. Hopewell housed me. But politically we don't share the same views. We completely disagreed. Right. He's been a vicious critic of me on social media, on platforms with other media players. He has been viciously anti me. But I don't believe that we must shut him out. I believe that we must air his views. Because when he airs his views, we have an humble opportunity to respond to them and give answers. The problem with denying people access is that you let them build a cult following because their views are not challenged. I am a firm believer in giving everyone a platform. Never follow a direction yako, so that they aid, then you provide a solution and an answer. That's how you can create understanding. We can increase understanding by making sure that we give everybody a platform, but we allow people who will be very critical. Why is ZiFM, I want to just respond quickly to Nash. Why is ZiFM not controversial? Because we will say, what's the topical at the moment? What's hot? Okay, then we hear, oh no, the American embassy is saying to have visa sanctions. Government, visa. So we want to have a discussion about it. So we bring somebody from the embassy, we bring somebody from government. So the debate is, we are positive, we are negative. We are negative, we are positive.
Yeah,
let the people be the judge. I've asked you to program.
I'll call you back, man.
So we are not controversial because we offer an opportunity to all parties. And that's the principle of journalism. It's objectivity and fairness. If we are going to discuss a subject that we know there is a view on one end, another view on the other end, bring both parties. And that makes exciting radio.
Yeah, no, I will give it to you because you have given some controversial characters a platform where I thought that you wouldn't.
It's not me, it's the station. You know, sometimes but you know, freedom.
Yeah, but I'm sure you'd get some sort of backlash from the old school people because they don't understand this concept.
No, but I think you have a wrong view that when you say they don't understand, they actually understand because they're the ones who have allowed these laws to exist. They're the ones who brought in the independence of the media.
But why I say that is because on ZBC radio stations,
you don't hear
nothing
that
like
kind
that
of stuff.
I'm trying to understand why. Because they don't. Nelson Chamisa would never get the time of day on a ZBC platform.
I don't think you should blame the president on why Nelson Chamisa is not on ZBC or why he has not been interviewed on ZBC. I think
gatekeepers?
No, I think there's a different approach to media, and the best approach to media is always to give everybody the opportunity to speak, and then you allow the opposing side to counter the message that has been put across. The challenge we have, in my view, is that there is a tendency to abuse public media by those in the opposition. So when they get a platform, they will lambast ZBC. ZBC is not objective. It's state-controlled. It's state-used. There are human beings behind ZBC. Now, when you have gone and attacked ZBC, you have attacked these people as unprofessional, do you think they will have the energy to pick up a phone and call you? No. And I think that it's a wrong approach from those that want to engage with ZBC. Because the best is, guys, we are available if you want to interview us. That's the best way
But
to
what
handle
you're
information.
basically saying is you have to be nice to ZBC for ZBC to call you.
No, you don't have to be nice to ZBC. You just have to be nice to everyone as a human being.
As in, don't badger.
If I didn't know you, and if I thought you were okay, forget it. Let me give you a good example. If Hopewell was hosting this show and he invited me, I'll be the first one to run there. Because I believe this is a platform for me to respond to his issues against me, or to his views, which he is entitled to. But this is my opportunity. I believe that if you have a media strategy that says you must go to international platforms and accuse ZBC of being biased and accuse these guys, then you are inviting or making them into a monster. They'll just say, okay, this is what he thinks about it. How can we even invite him? This is what he thinks about us. So I just think it's a terrible media strategy. If you are in an organization and you go and attack the people who you want a platform from, I just think the best strategy is to say, guys, we are available. If you issue a statement, you call them. If you issue if you want to have a press conference or you invite them, that's the only way you can best engage. So I cannot speak on behalf of ZBC on their coverage, but I speak as somebody who understands media and somebody who understands how to handle media. In Indica, Buddha and Shingo Shoropodza ZBC, would they ever want to work with me? I don't think so. Even though they are a public broadcaster, you are dealing with human beings who have feelings. Saka maripota wanza kaenda kurali akatukwa akaroha angazoda kuzokudaidza futhi ku-interview. Saka you ought to then come out and say, we must protect ZBC. Muri kupi, uyai kumberi, azoda kuti mubate vanhu ZBC. That's what leadership must demonstrate. But if you don't do that, ZBC also go into shell.
But, one of your superstar presenters is on record as saying she left your radio station because of politics. I'm referring to Ruvheneko Parenyatwa. She left abruptly soon after an interview with Ivan Mawarire on your radio station. And whilst you're saying that, maybe for you, you give everyone a platform. Ivan was given a platform, but it cost Ruvheneko a job.
That's not true.
According to my research.
Let me correct your research.
Right.
I think what Ruvheneko did, and I really don't want to spend so much time on it because I think she's one of the best products that we produced from ZiFM. And we like to keep it at that.
As it is,
what really happened was not because she brought Ivan. I think there was concern on everybody already knew Ivan's views against the government.
Right.
And therefore, the issue was, Ruvheneko, you cannot bring this person without somebody else in the studio who will argue with him.
To balance.
Otherwise, you are giving somebody a platform we already know what he's going to say. So we need balance in terms of this show.
Right.
And an editor-in-chief of an organization, and it was the case in this particular case, then said, no, call somebody else. Ruvheneko says, I had not planned to call anyone else. And the editor had a call. No, call Tafadzkom Sarara because he will have an opposite view to Ivan, and then you will have a balanced show. But Ruvheneko didn't feel that she was obligated, and she went out and said, it was not my idea. She disowned a decision of an editor. When you work under a newsroom, you report to an editor, and an editor gives you editorial direction. So when you are in a newsroom and you are given direction and you disobey, you are completely disrespecting the structures. It happens in every newsroom across the world. The editor has the final say on how you are going to put together your article or how you're going to put together your show. If the editor feels that there's a potential of backlash by giving one side a view, they can say, have somebody else to balance this show. And that's exactly what happened. And Ruvheneko didn't like the idea, and she went out and said, it was not my idea. The moment you are disowning the position and the decision of the editor, you are simply saying, I'm not part of you.
But did that warrant like an immediate dismissal?
No, she was never dismissed. She stayed She was actually promoted. She felt it wasn't a genuine promotion. It felt she was kicked
probably
upstairs.
wasn't. You know?
She felt she was kicked upstairs.
She was kicked upstairs,
but
like quiet.
We just needed to get the temperatures to cool down, and then she will be back and do her stuff. And I must say, you know what? A couple of months ago, she reached out and said she would like to come back to the station and do a show. And I said, yeah, we will consider that, and it's still under consideration.
I don't think that's a no-brainer. That was your superstar presenter for that particular show.
We create more superstars like Becky.
Okay.
Nash.
Every day a star is born.
Nash.
Okay, all right, okay. Are we answered on this one? Because Hon Supa is a journalist.
No, and he's a sweet talker.
Yeah. So we're gonna find out later when we're playing the show, but how come we didn't?
Mukoma is a sweet talker. Sweet talker.
Are you saying he's not telling the truth?
I think there's more to it. You know what I mean? But also because I don't understand. Ruvy's dad is Zanu PF youth. Zanu PF. It's like
but you're missing the point.
You know, there's a clip.
Ivan was never. Let me tell you.
But there's a clip on the internet where you're saying, "I'm going to take you off Twitter or something." I saw a little clip. I don't have context.
No. But again, it was gotten out. It was completely out of context. Mm-hmm. Where do I get the power as a Supa Mandiwanzira to remove somebody from Twitter? It's nonsensical.
Yeah, the Minister of Information, you get shut down the internet.
No, the conversation was a completely different conversation. So there was a clip taken, which gave the impression that that's what I was saying. I'll take you off Twitter. No, I actually, I knew Ivan very well, and I knew Ivan from Geneta Beg, MC, and Ivan was an admirer of our former president. Mm-hmm. And at every function, he would try and speak. He would imitate. He would imitate our president. I remember that. So I didn't think that he was necessarily hostile to the president because there was something terribly wrong, or to Zanu PF because there was something terribly wrong. But I felt that is a guy who has gotten an opportunity. What opportunity? I didn't know. Ivan, when he was starting his own church, he said he was in the market looking for donations for chairs and stuff. I gave him chairs to start his own church. So I didn't have that kind of relationship that the public think I had with Ivan. I actually supported him. I used to run Rainbow Cinemas. I used to own Rainbow Cinemas, and I gave it away to my staff, and we closed down some of the cinemas. And I donated some of the chairs to Ivan. So I wouldn't have had the guts to send Jakutora off Twitter because Twitter. So it wasn't Ivan, and I need to repeat this again. It was the dispute, or the argument was the editor has felt that the program will not be balanced if we just have Ivan. You need to have somebody else to balance, because we already know what Ivan is saying out there about the government and about Zanu PF. We don't want to run into trouble with the government by saying, why are you giving a one side of the story? Why are you not giving us an opportunity to give a counter narrative to Ivan's narrative? So get somebody else to balance. It was never why do you have Ivan? And Ivan knows this. Ruvheneko knows this. We said you should have had the balance. The point of departure was when Ruvheneko then says, it was not even my idea to bring this Msarara guy.
But wasn't that because there was now backlash, because the opposing view was not as strong as Ivan's
not even it wasn't.
Not lopsided. Did Ivan not come out on top in this conversation?
We didn't, and I wouldn't care, because we have two sides to a story. If one side is stronger than the other,
that's not my business.
That's not my business. I have sorted out the fact that both of you must have an opportunity to present your cases and defend your territory. And if Ivan had failed, or if Msarara had failed, doesn't matter. That's what radio is about. What the problem was you can't have an editor who decides kuti headline yamaisa apa chinja aimunyore yakadai moti handizviiti nina ndoti ndiwataura contract yako inotaura kuti unoripota kuna editor. Saka editor akati aiwa unzai umwe munhu ubva wabuda uchiti I didn't even invite that guy. I think there was a problem. But you know, Ruvheneko was a young presenter doing very well on social media, and social media inogona kulifta yokusvitsa by a certain position ekuti inogona kukupa this energy ekuti zvawakaitwa zviri wrong. But you, if you don't analyze it, unotofunga kuti social media is right. So, and I have had a conversation with Ruvheneko about this, and I said, you know what, this is in the past. You know, we were all young at that particular point, and things happen. Let's move on. Let's create new stuff. Let's create something that takes us forward. And for me, that's what is more important. We learned our lessons out of that episode. I think she learned her lessons. I learned my lessons. The station learned its lessons. We got to move on and do big and better things. And for me, that is what is important. Okay. There's always going to be a point in any organization of a life or a relationship where you don't agree. And that disagreement may cause some real fractures, or if you sit down, you can agree.
I don't know. So we can look forward to new episodes of
What
the Ruvheneko show. Okay, just tell us in the comments. We are looking forward to Ruvheneko back on ZiFM.
I want to take him back to when you were bidding for the radio station, the bandwidth issue.
Right.
Yeah, the other station, obviously.
Your station.
Sister station.
Yo.
I'm having fun. It's got a better bandwidth because of the cars that we, get here in Zimbabwe. Yeah. So
this is
the
why they're
bandwidth.
always winning.
Yeah, in fact, we have a big problem with that situation.
But
okay.
Can I cut you? Yeah. I think ZiFM is meant for the richer people with nicer cars.
So they have access.
Automatically, but when I'm Japanese, you have to work harder to listen to ZiFM.
Oh my God! Okay,
it's a gift and good.
It has to be Nash.
No, it's like Apple. It's like Apple. ZiFM
yes,
is
no.
It's
like
very
Apple,
niche
market.
Mac and
yes, any bandwidth it 100. What?
Star FM is Samsung.
Very
Apple.
Okay, let me address that. I'd like to seriously address this matter.
Yes.
And I agree with Nash. I think Nash is a very important point. ZiFM has a very special audience. In fact, our position is that we actually don't count the people we reach. Like, my listeners, we reach the people who count. So that is our attitude, and we are arrogant about it.
You want to press it then. I saw you. Gosh.
So we are arrogant about it. And sometimes when we do presentations, we say, you know what? We broadcast to people who live north of the railway line. But
I told you.
And also at the same time, the people who live south of the railway line aspire to live north of the railway line, so they also listen to us. So we are in this.
They don't. The Japanese.
They aspire.
Doesn't.
Yeah. So
okay.
So let me go now back to address the issue. So a lot of people who are driving Japanese cars, imported second-hand Japanese cars, will have a challenge accessing ZiFM in their radio stations. Why? Because Japan as a country was allocated bandwidth by the International Telecommunications Union, which allocates bandwidth to every country up to 90 megahertz, which means any station that broadcasts from 90 and below, you can access it through the imported cars from Japan.
Right.
Any channel that's broadcasting above 90, you can't access them in the Japanese cars. However, there's a solution.
Right.
The solution is if you drive a second-hand Japanese car with a Japanese radio, you can buy what is called a bandwidth extender. It costs only $5. Then you can access all the channels. So what has happened in the market is that if you talk to people in Harare, the majority will know of Star FM because Kanarim Kombi about Japan. Kombi about Japan is like Star FM. But it's not because they have a choice. It's because they are forced to listen to one station because that's the only one broadcasting there.
Yeah, no, but because also, if you notice that, I'm speaking for some of us with Mercedes Benzes. quality is different? How come the quality at ZiFM
sound.
is way better? The sound
The
is
stereo.
better
It's
than
stereo. ZFM stereo.
No,
Daniel.
the issue is it has to do with the expertise we have in our technical department. It's all to do first the technical expertise, but also the hardware that we have deployed in order to get a better sound, a more crisper sound. And if you are listening to, if you are flipping through the channels, when you are listening to some channels, I'm not mentioning their names, and if you go to ZiFM,
Tower FM.
if you go to
No,
ZiFM,
I did mention it because, like, if you tune in to Power FM,
Yes, the
in
sound
your
is
car,
very different.
and it's not a secret.
Yes.
Even if they are to sue me, we'll switch on the radio. The sound
And
is
then
low.
prove the
And I
sound
was
will speak for
asking-
itself.
Yeah, and I was asking why that is. So
Yeah.
at least he's giving us
the real
explanation.
reason, is because we use a better we use better synthesizers, we use better equipment, and also we have the expertise in house to be able to understand what works and what will deliver crispy sound to the listeners, and that's really the major issue.
Okay, and then also whilst on that same thing to do with ZFM, ZBC, right? I'm sure they're doing it through the Broadcasting Services Act. ZBC is mounting roadblocks and forcing us, right, to pay radio licenses, right? And this is the same for even these people who have no access to ZBC channels, because if you're, I think you can probably access one ZBC channel if you have a Japanese car. And then Star FM is the bulk of what people are listening to anyway. And meanwhile, ZBC takes all this money, but none of you players. I don't think you get any of that revenue.
No, we don't.
Because in my car, I listen to ZFM.
Okay, so
I shouldn't be giving ZBC anything. No. So
Danny, you don't listen to me.
Let me know.
okay, let me.
I listen only when you're on, and then I go back to ZFM.
So let me address this issue. First of all, you are wrong by suggesting that ZBC is forcing you to pay. ZBC has no power to force anyone to pay for a radio license. The law forces you to pay for a radio license. That's number one. Number two,
ZBC is who I meet on the road.
ZBC is just an agent implementing a law because they have been designated to implement that law.
Right.
The law is very clear. You don't pay a radio license or a TV license because you're watching ZBC. You pay a radio license or a TV license because you own a receiver.
True, I get that. But is it fair for ZFM and Star FM?
It is fair on the basis of why it was done. Implementation may be a different story altogether, but you must understand that ZBC has an obligation for national broadcasting, for public service broadcasting, which means they must be in areas where, as a private radio station, ZFM says it will be too costly for me to go there. ZBC has no choice. It has to go there because it has a responsibility to provide access to every Zimbabwean. ZBC has an obligation to go to Heroes Acre to cover live the burial of a hero, to go to the National Sports Stadium for independence celebrations. I, as a private radio broadcaster, may choose to go or not to go, but ZBC has an obligation. Because of that obligation, they have been allowed to collect this tax that's based on you owning a receiver. And there's always this confusion where people say, but my program is ZBC, ana kidze, but it's good, but my license, azvisizu zvamobhadharira. Unobhadhara nekuti mune radio. Kana musingade kubhadhara, rasai radio.
I think my problem is I asked the wrong person. You are a Zanu PF politician. You are in the police bureau. You represent the government. My point.
That is the law. That is the law.
Yeah, I get it. The Broadcasting Services Act stipulates that this amount must be paid. ZBC uses this revenue for their day-to-day running, whether it's content production or whatever. But I'm saying
they are empowered to use that.
But I'm saying this is an old law.
No, but it is law.
It is an old one, and I think you as an MP and other people should be challenging it, because ZBC is taking all the revenue, but most of the people are not listening to ZBC radio stations, and there has to be an element of fairness in it.
Okay, so here's what I have proposed. I have proposed, Kuti, if it is possible, the Minister of Information must consider this, that ZBC, because it is mandated to collect the license fees, and that it must utilize 100% of those license fees. ZBC must not be allowed to go into the market to compete with the private players for advertising. Then ZBC must never take advertising for money, because it is already receiving from every Zimbabwean taxpayer an amount that it must use for its business. So that you remove the competition with somebody who's already getting a tax benefit with somebody who doesn't have that tax benefit.
So we agree.
Who is private. So
you want
I've proposed that, either that, or we say ZBC, because it has got a national responsibility that we must respect, it must retain 50% of the money they collect. Another 50% must go into a fund which is accessible to anyone who wants to start any media-related business. For instance, if the Denny J Show wants to go international and they need funding, they must then go to this fund, which is created out of a portion of the license fee. This has been my proposal, to say this is how we can grow the industry. This is how we can bring some fairness, where you're not having a national broadcaster or a state broadcaster benefiting independent of others, and then go to crowd out the other players, mumarket kunotsvaga advert, so that there is some kind of fairness. And I think these are reasonable suggestions, and obviously we have a very young man in the Ministry of Information, and is looking at them.
Because I think the problem stems from the fact that ZBC is not making that much money from ad revenue anymore.
Yeah, but
now they are now being compelled to go and stop us on the roads. I've never seen it
they're
anywhere.
not stopping you.
I've never seen it anywhere in the world where there's a roadblock. There's a roadblock mounted.
But when you don't pay.
But have you ever seen it anywhere in the world? Look, you're a high-ranking Zanu PF official. Yes, I get it. But have you ever seen it? Like,
it's just law enforcement, I guess.
Nash, have you ever seen it like in Joburg, and then the SABC stops us for a radio license? I've never seen it.
I've just told you, the Minister of Information is a young, energetic, dynamic minister who is looking at various elements, particularly some of these complaints that have come, not just from you, I think that have come from many people, to say, how do you delay me for so many minutes and didn't queue a license here, and we're killing production time. Productive. So the minister is very dynamic about it, and is looking into it on how we can make it efficient for collection. I think you read recently in the newspapers that there are proposals that have been done to amend some laws to make sure that this collection can be done at some point, which is not necessarily on the road. So the minister is young and dynamic, and is considering all the frustrations that the people are facing, and trying to find a way around it.
Plus, if I have a radio license at home, should I pay for a car license when I'm in the car? Because I'm pretty much covered, because I'm not at home, I'm now in the car, I have a license.
Is there a receiver in your car? Is there a receiver at home? You pay for a receiver.
Only in Zimbabwe. Okay. All right. Okay. Then are we done with ZiFM? Because now we're going to the minister.
Yes. Right? Now we're going to the minister.
No.
Are we done?
No, we're not done with ZiFM.
Before.
So when I look at ZiFM, it's like the YFM in South Africa. Is that something that you're trying to duplicate, or is that something
Metro?
A very young radio station?
I think that we actually would like to be identified with Highveld Stereo than YFM.
But Highveld Stereo is boring.
That's weird.
No. But now I have energy.
No.
Anyway,
let
me tell you why Highveld Stereo. So when we were plotting how to set up the radio, I went and visited many radio stations in South Africa. So we went to Highveld, and I said, okay, so tell me about the radio business. How much money do you make? You know what they told me? They said, we make $55 million per year. I said, I want to be like this station.
Also, you like the numbers.
I like the numbers.
You like the Highveld numbers.
I like
Not the vibe.
Okay.
Just the numbers.
So basically, when we were setting up the station, we realized the majority of the population, my youth, it's just we want to capture the youth. And we also realized, Kuti, anyone in business had to capture the majority of the customers. And who are the majority of the customers? My youth. So we also realized, Kuti, creativity is more with the youth than it is with the older generation. Saka, if you want to start something that is entertaining, exciting, and sustainable, focus on a generation that is always transforming itself, bringing in new stuff, new energy. So that's the agenda. That's why we kind of are like YFM and similar like stations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You happy?
And then also, graft. I mean, you work with these beautiful young girls.
Right.
I must want to appreciate them, Guru.
Hello, young lady.
Come into my office.
Come into my office.
Let me tell you, Isusu were show business. And show business, you must have a situation when somebody comes at your station, they want to come back again. That's why we had Becky, we had young people who had energy, who had, people just want to be around those people.
Right.
So the whole idea is when you're doing show business, do it to the max. So you got to get the best energetic, beautiful talent on air. And beautiful is in many respects. Atarisa face, tosa capacity, tosa goda kwako, tosa energy yako, and we develop these young people.
I think his question was like I'm
to the pressure, to meet pressure.
No, because
but you mean the pressure because more sense our baby man nice.
It's that was Jaira.
But
Kasiana ne urungo shigongo ne roi pap.
Okay, I know. Probably mkuru anosasa wana tata. Mkuru ndio wedu, boys redu. Masasa hapo ndiye kuti baisa. But I'm sure ataka investigator tukonotozo wachi waono tu muru. Zakambenda mu office mkuru. Hapo frama huko mkuru.
Anzi wano tu muru.
I should have not come to this show.
The shepherd.
Hence I asked, what made you agree?
ZiFM guy, zikana ni Zukuru nice or Zukuru.
And it's not like Mukuru.
It's deliberate. It's deliberate.
Mukuru is not gay.
Mukuru,
Yes. As far as we know.
Mukuru is only human. Mukuru is only human.
So let's get to 2014, where you became a minister. I think you became a deputy minister.
I was deputy minister of information. Yeah.
Of information, and then you moved on to minister of ICT.
That's right.
So, from doing all this business work that you've done and all these successes that you've managed to get, how do you end up becoming a politician, a Zanu PF politician?
I like the distinction you make and say Zanu PF politician.
Not just a politician.
Not just a politician.
As if it's not fashionable to be Zanu PF.
No. It's cool.
It's cool. Yeah.
Oh, it's cool.
And we must make it cooler.
Yeah.
Now, here's actually what happened. I'm doing media business in the passion and empowerment.
Right.
I just like to see black people make money. I like to see success of Zavana Matema. And we looked at when Strive, doing well. When Strive was going through his problems, I was a reporter at ZBC. I was passionate about making sure that his story is well known.
Right.
And he got a lot of sympathy until he got a license.
Right.
So, because I have a general attitude, Nikaona Denny achita something. And I said, Denny, I'm going to support White Mari. We must help Denny do well. Right? Because the reason is, I have young kids. They must see black people who look like them,
like heroes,
do successful things in our country. Yeah. So, ndaka join AAG.
Right.
Yeah, I'm koma fit.
So, Shinjam Dara.
Takazo peace kwa manje. Takazo kushiyendisa kure. Ara achangu.
Calm yourself down. Watch yourself. Watch yourself.
Tata mayane chinu. Saka, he's a nice guy, man. He's a great guy. So, so I actually went to his office, and it was dead. Then I said, Dara, but AAG Afaka. You need to revive this thing. So ndakutokuita president wacho.
Okay. Yeah. What president?
Yeah, what president? Avatonyora tsamba ipapo. And indeed, then we started, fighting the cause. Let's get more opportunities. Yeah. Our diamonds were being denied access to the international markets because we were said to be not KPC compliant. We lobbied. We went to Israel. We were under sanctions. We went to the USA. We met Zimbabweans there. We went to Voice of America as AAG, pushing agenda enyika and pushing agenda evanhu vatema. You are denying us an opportunity.
Who was funding this?
We had a lot of funders in business.
Right.
Some of them don't want to be known, but they
believed
they
in
subscribed to our agenda because it would also help them. Saka because and takavata zvekuti chakaita mbiri AAG.
And your deputy was Temba.
Temba was not the we had Secretary General was Tafazo Msarara. Temba was a very significant member in the team. Right. Then we had Mashaba, Eliphas Mashaba. He was our Treasurer General, and then we had with a couple of other good guys. Yeah. So Takumanya Chamuchiwanza brought in Chamuchiwanza as well. So Tamanya Chino. Then kwa election in Kumshonga Nyanga.
What year is this?
This is in 2012. But earlier, kumusha kwaitwa my elections, Zanu PF yajigiwa kunyanga North, kwapinda Douglas Monzora. Zanu PF yajigiwa kunyanga South, kwapinda mwanonzi Chimbetete, and this was unheard of because you see vanhu kunyanga vakaona hondo. So vanoziva kukosha kwemusangano weZanu PF kuti dai vasiri vanhu ava takaparara. Saka it also stand, the senior leadership. How does this happen? And so I get a call from the MP, Paul Kadzima, was Zanu PF MP, had lost, and says, we think that in politics and chada. We think you are the right candidate. Politics. I can't do that. Business. What we beg. No, it's just to about the agenda enyika. Ninya empowerment yatiri campaign na e. Saka, why don't I stay in my course? He said, "Aiwa, chimbono bvunza madam. Chimbono can consult I." So I just ignore it. Then the DCC chairman, Moses Gutu, and Fonera, we were at primary school together. It was a year behind me. Then he looks for me. He says, I'm the DCC chairman. Because I attract candidate inogona kuti kwikwidzana nevanhu vapinda tikuona kuti imimi zita ringotaurwa kwese kwese watiri kuti candidate zvinonzi madii kudai madaidza Supa. Ndikati no handisikuda. Inini ndoda kufokasa kubusiness. Ndozona mufana anochibvura wema youth chairman auya futi ndogaya kuti kuchi chiri kuitika. Then Kadzima adzoka futi makazobvunza madam here ndikati game ratiri kubuda mudare plus I need politics andizviziva ndazvigona. So how can I just go into politics? Ndofocus negame rekutsvaka mari ndokwandodai kuenda. I'm at home kutsvaka bag. Hazvina chimbofungai. Then I bump into Comrade Didymus Mutasi. Then he was the Secretary for Administration. Then he says to me, Hon Mandiwanzira, tiri kunzwa kuti muri kuramba.
Sure. Tiri kunzwa. Like you and who?
Yate one of my elders.
Tiri kunzwa kuti muri kuramba kumirira musangano.
Yo.
Ndakuona kuti nyaya yakura muntu ukapanapa. Ndikati no, I have to change my course. Because then I explained to him, no, the reason is like you need to focus on business. You can summon the Mandiwanzira. Jese Jamur Kuita will end up with nothing if Zanu PF is out of power. Because Isusu still represent the economic needs and the interests of Anwatema. Saka mukapusha ma business yenyu ku AAG. Zanu PF ikabuda power. Vachapinda vacho ma economic interests avada ku advance. Atanga atarisa muno mutema. Ane ma interest ekunze vanhu vanofila kuti they should have been in this country vakacolonize vachitora ma-resources. Saka you ought to first of all stop this and come and defend that which allows you to get into business.
Right.
I think principle in Daibat. That's when I went on the ground and I started campaigning. So because when my primary elections, everybody stood down and said, no, it's also we are not going into primary elections. So I went in
by
unopposed.
yourself?
Yeah, unopposed.
Right.
The first election. So I went in unopposed. I won. Immediately, I was appointed Deputy Minister of Information.
Was that your reward for then accepting?
No, it was. I don't believe that I was rewarded for anything. I think the then president looked at my credentials and said, Pavano Apinda Vanichi in terms of qualifications.
Because you were prominent. You were
Yeah,
prominent.
so I was well known in the media, and I knew I'd started the radio station. So I had a track record. And I used to argue with people and said, no, you're happy, you are station. I said, no, let's understand something.
Station first.
Yeah, I said, let's understand something. Inina and now kuno tora company murungu. Dindaka greba company murungu. I started something from zero. From scratch. Personal radio station, personal
Started
show
from the
ZiFM.
bottom, now we're
I
here.
created that. And because I created that, I have something to my name. So I think Kurango noti pavano apinda uyango noti batsira ku information because
There was something to write on.
and background you. So I was made Deputy Minister of Information. My minister was then Professor Jonathan Moyo. And then I worked under him for, and I must be very thankful because, we used to meet as deputy ministers. Mama means I complain out. Hamashifa, asumbo chance.
And you didn't have that story.
I didn't have that problem. I went to, we got we got an invitation to be on Hard Talk as the ministry, and they said, no, Isusu, we can only shoot this show in Joburg because that's where they had a live satellite link with BBC in London. And Professor Moyo, in a meeting with myself, Comrade George Charamba, our permanent secretary, said, yeah, Supa and they are going to Hard Talk, Joburg. And I went to Joburg and I did Hard Talk. So I was given an opportunity to showcase myself. And sometimes you need somebody who underwrites your exposure to say, give him a chance to do this.
You can do it.
Yeah, because if I hadn't been given the chance, I was so proud of that opportunity because I went to Hard Talk and I think I did fairly well. I was very proud of myself because Comrade George Charamba, Professor Jonathan Moyo, in their feedback, Monday meeting, were very happy to say, no, you did very well. So I took the disc and I went to give the president. No, do I tamba kujobeki.
Report. Report.
I was proud.
Yes.
I'm not with the wrong choice.
Hey,
No, this is what I did. I mean, he was obviously not in a position to watch it. I don't know whether he eventually watched it
Right.
at that point. But I got this then exposure of working with this team, Comrade George Charamba and Professor Jonathan Moyo. Then, within a year, I was given the post of Minister of ICT. And then,
Some Daragaona disc.
and this
Daragaona disc, I believe.
Or he just heard really great feedback. It's okay, then let's make him minister.
I don't know. I just think that
But maone ruri mwari wacho arongoseta mutambo from when you started.
He's got a good hand.
So then, as Minister of ICT, I think there was a lot of things that you did, and also a number of controversies that came up about whilst you were minister.
True.
Let's talk about Telecel first.
Right.
I've got a list.
okay.
All right,
And
okay.
they doing.
Oh, yeah.
The state owns Net1. Right. Net1 is a state-run cellular network. Why was it necessary for you to get Telecel as well, to be owned by the state? Because when we look at the landscape of cellular communications, and Econet is the big player. Net One is the second best player, but they're far off in terms of what Econet has achieved.
True.
So, from a perspective of us consumers, it would have been nice if you had robbed in MTN, Vodacom, or one of these big players to give Econet a run for their money. But now the state owns 2 cellular networks, and Econet is taking all the cake. Why was it necessary for you to take over Telecel instead of getting rid of Telecel, making sure that a worthy competitor gets a hold of it?
Very good question, Danny. I want to thank you because I think the people have always had this kind of question, and I've had not had an opportunity to respond what actually happened. So when I was appointed ICT minister, I got into the ministry and found many things that were happening. One thing that I discovered, most of the networks had their licenses due for renewal.
Right.
Net One had paid. Econet had paid, and the renewal fee was $120 million US. Okay, so the only company that hadn't renewed its license but was still operating was Telecel, and they had gone into an agreement to pay for this license fees in terms. They would pay $5 million here, another $5 million there. As minister, I analyzed this and I said, Econet is owned by a Zimbabwean. They have paid their license fee in full. Net One is owned by all Zimbabweans because it's a state-owned enterprise. They have paid their license. Telecel is owned 60% by a Russian billionaire, by a company called Vimpelcom. They've been given terms to pay. How is it possible that we give support to a foreign-owned company and we don't give that support to Zimbabwean-owned companies? I accept the fact that 40% of Telecel was owned by Zimbabweans, and I respect the fact that was the case. But we were giving a free loan on the back of hard-working Zimbabweans to a company that was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise globally. And this is a company that would not have a problem paying for $120 million. And I said, there's something wrong here. And this can't be acceptable. So I went to the president and I said, these are my views. I think that a deal was done, but if I was in charge, I would not have agreed to this deal because I think it is unfair on Econet, it is unfair on Net One, and why should Zimbabweans be bankrolling a foreign entity? Because the license fee is if it's paid, $120 million, it will go into the national coffers, and those national coffers will make sure there are drugs in hospitals. That national coffers will make sure that we fix our roads. Those national coffers will make sure that our colleges and training institutions are up to speed. I don't understand why we should give terms to a multi-billion-dollar company that's operating in Europe and that does not pay in terms to European governments for their licenses. Then at around the same time, the Russians were selling their 60% shareholding. And they had almost cut a deal with a network from Angola, owned by, at that point, the richest woman on the African continent.
Eduardo dos Santos' daughter.
Eduardo dos Santos' daughter.
Right.
So she made an appointment to come and see me. She came with a delegation, and they came to present their proposal to say they would like to buy Telecel. And they wanted to buy Telecel, but they still wanted to be given more time to pay for the license fee. And I'm like, we're still in the same space.
We're not going anywhere.
We're not going anywhere. We're still in the same space. And how do we allow this kind of situation? So in my position as ICT minister, I reported to the vice president, who is the current president. So ndaenda kuna vice president then, His Excellency Comrade Mnangagwa, but he was still vice president. So ndaitanga that discussion now. Iwo wondipa direction, what right? I think approach it wakadai. Saka pandai nzenda kuna mdara uko teta bika nyaya kuno ukunda utoluka unge ndakarongeka ndapiwa chi ndapiwa manotsi kuno kumara but so I would then go and ndotara VP pane issue iyi saka iyo vanobva uri kuiona sei, what do you think should be done? Ndo apa my views angu to right, I think it is so but chenda unodi unoona mdara. So I would then go to see the president. So I discussed this matter with the president. I said, no, President, this thing is up for sale. And the Angolans want to buy it, Eduardo dos Santos' daughter. And they've already agreed with the Russians. Mm-hmm. And the transactions is being done outside of our borders. And as far as I know, apana, there's nothing that will accrue to Zim. Because my shares are going to change internationally. Mm. No money is coming into Zim, no tax revenue is coming into Zim, no dividend is coming into Zim, no capital gains tax is coming into Zim, nothing. President, why do we want to allow foreigners to buy? Why can't Zimbabweans do it? In any case, license ilitakari pama Zimbabweans. Vakazopinza zvao Telecel, Denny, Telecel was a big player in Congo. Vakazopinza hao Miko Rwaitare, who was the man behind Telecel. But this was an empowerment license. Saka, this thing must remain here. Saka, serenga imbomira. So, isusu tofana kutenga as government. Then tozo ipa vanhu vatema to run it.
Right.
So I said, okay, we'll do that. That's a directive. I will make sure. So I met Elizabeth. Is it Elizabeth? Isabel. Yeah, I met Isabel. And I said to Isabel, but you want to come and operate. You still don't want to pay the license. Why would you like a government to give you a free license also badara later? Chuya ni mari achu badari. If kana pasa kadaro, apana tiri. Vambo tenderera akapinda kune mama office akanoti eka mfana atoramba. Apa yazoto ndine baking uta fambe. Yeah. So that's eventually and then what happened. And so as government, I was given a mandate that Isuzu as government, we must localize the shareholding of Telecel. After Taita localize that shareholding, we will then put it onto the market and we'll have Zimbabweans invest in that business. And that's exactly what we did. You mentioned why MTN. We did have meetings with MTN. They were keen to come in. And I still think that they're keen to come into this market. They were keen to come in, but they were never keen to come in on Telecel. They were never keen to come and on Net One. They were keen to own one entity which combined Telecel and Net One. So so that is actually what was ultimately going to be the plan. But my directive was, let's make sure we first secure the business. After to secure the business, we give it to Zimbabweans to run it, add value to it, then they can get a new player who comes in with fresh money into the country. So it was never an intention to destroy. It was actually an intention to build.
So the original deal, the original plan was foiled when you went retained as the minister. Because you were supposed to get ownership and then do the next stage. Yeah, I think what happened was that Pakazo it were my changes, but now it were reappointed. There was new thinking, and I don't know what that thinking was, and I've never gone to ask Makazo it to say because it's no longer in my place to do, and I cannot challenge because I believe that people make decisions using circumstances existing at that particular moment when they have to make decisions. And you cannot challenge their decisions because they may be sound, based on very sound principles. So I didn't follow it up and what eventually happened. So I cannot tell you what the position is at the moment.
So, sorry, I just wanted to ask, so where does government get the money to buy the 60%? Yeah. Why are we investing in a telecommunication company when we can fix roads, hospitals? I was about to get to that because he then got into trouble
regarding how he financed that transaction. Let's
Okay, so
now we've got to talk about how now we got to talk about how he managed to finance that transaction.
So here's what happened when we were trying to raise money to finance the transaction. We went to the local banks. I remember we went to CBZ and said, we want to do this transaction as government, and we would like you to advise us in terms of raising the capital. We needed to pay $40 million US. I had negotiated. The Russians were going to sell to Isabel for about 120 million. I had negotiated the transaction to about $50 million dollars, because I discounted on the basis that you did not have a license. I discounted.
You're selling an unlicensed.
Yeah, you're selling an unlicensed entity. Number one, so you cannot put a premium which is based on a licensed entity when it's actually not licensed.
Right.
So I was able to negotiate. Could I have a real enterprise value? I see 100. Let's be very honest. And Imimi, because they were putting money into Telecel, and they said we are owed money by Telecel. The Vimpelcom, we're owed money by Telecel. They said we're putting money to buy equipment, and therefore we were giving loans. So we said no. So we are buying your company in Europe that was being given loans, so that those loans become our loans. Saka imukutengesera loan bukurenyu ne asset sina value maningi because aina license. Saka loan bukurenyu ito discount because chances which bad imam shutadza okwana mari because mam complain. So long and short, negotiated the enterprise value to around 40 million. So we were supposed to pay $40 million. Yeah. So we went into negotiations with Vimpelcom lawyers in London, in Netherlands, and in the USA. And we had a very competent team of lawyers. The Attorney General at that point, Mamachaya, and then we had lawyers from POTRAS, the Postal and Telecommunication Regulatory Authority, Mainya Mutswa, brilliant lawyer, because the Americans were very smart in the way they drafted the agreement. That if we didn't have smart lawyers,
you would have missed out on a lot of information.
They would not have obtained even a cent. They were so smart, but she was able to pick up all the shenanigans, and then we eventually had an agreement. So we said, where can we raise the money? CBZ said, okay, they'll go in the market, but we were also running out of time. So I then approached HE, the current HE, because they are in the advice. And they got, chef, takapiwa mandate in a president. Second, do advice on how we can. Says no. So I went to HE and I said to HE, we're looking for raising funds. And Tata approach a bank, this is what we're looking for, and then we will need foreign money because we need to pay these Russians, we must pay this money in Netherlands. Right. So we debated and discussed until we came up with a solution. I would know, let's raise the money from NASA, because NASA had the money. So why NASA? Because NASA was sitting on that money, and we were localizing an asset that was taking money outside the country. So we were bringing back an asset from outside. So where money was being shipped out, we were now making sure that money will be shipped in. So that is the deal. And NASA was going to recover its money from the disposal of this asset at a premium. And they were going to make money out of it anyway. So it was a purely business deal. It was a purely business transaction. Yeah. So that's what we did. And then we had a meeting with the then Minister of Labor, Mayam Fumira, myself, the president. And then, we structured the transaction with the advice of our bankers. And, we did a deal and signed the deal.
But then you are on record as having then getting stress over this deal because some money came from POTRAS.
No, there was never money that came from POTRAS on this transaction because POTRAS wouldn't have, as a regulator, wouldn't have financed.
So what is this? The Auditor General is saying that you approved a $10 million transaction from POTRAS towards this deal.
No, there is no way that POTRAS, as a regulator, would have used funds to purchase an operator who they superintend over. People don't understand.
But you're aware of this?
I'm aware, but I'm going to answer. There is some organization under Potras that is called the Universal Services Fund.
Yes, I wanted to get into that.
The Universal Services Fund.
Yes.
So the Universal Services Fund, manage one Potras, but it's not. I say responsibility of Potras because if fund not to raise all money independent of Potras.
1%, 1.5%.
1.5% of you call your but there are 1.5% in end. So that.
You're a big guy, Denny. Like you just tilt the whole.
I'm getting into position.
Oh my goodness.
So there's 1.5% that goes into the Universal Services Fund on every bill that you pay on your cell phone.
And is that where the money came from?
10 million of that money came from that fund because that fund, in terms of its provisions, is allowed to invest. It can actually invest. So that is where that fund came from. It never came from Potras. And there was a confusion. People didn't understand.
But doesn't Potras manage that fund?
Potras was given the responsibility to oversee that fund because it is, in terms of proximity, imari irikubva ma subscribers. No, never comes from operators. And I had a big argument with the operators because they were saying, you're taking 1.5% from us. I said, no, this is not your money. This is a tax. You are just a collector.
Ooh.
That money is being paid by the subscriber. So irikubadarwa newe pauno badara phone bill rako, there's 1.5% which goes into the Universal Services Fund. And that fund is supposed to invest in infrastructure. It can invest in businesses. So we went to that fund to say, we want you to invest 10%
Telecel.
into Telecel. Joguti avanoita oversee the fund. It's not their money. Ongo manage your money. Ongo bank. Bank ongo manage mari za omo anu akatora mari yo ana noise ya ona because that's what happened.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't Potras.
But you were dragged to the courts
because
over this.
Not at all. There was never any issue of going to court.
Or not really. I think the Auditor General questioned.
Yeah, the Auditor General, I think they raised it, but they didn't understand, couldn't make a distinction between the relationship between Potras and the Universal Services Fund. The fund had never come from Potras. And the Auditor General would have been right to question why a regulator would put money on the table to buy a player who it regulates. But the reality is that the money never came from Potras. It actually came from the Universal Services Fund, whose trust deed allows USF to invest in any business or infrastructure in the telecommunication space.
Yeah, because the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission investigated you for a case of borrowing from government without treasury approval.
But we never borrowed from government.
Yeah.
We never borrowed from government.
Okay.
Okay, because this money was coming from a fund, a Universal Services Fund, whose mandate includes investing in telecommunications infrastructure.
Did you not have to get approval to use this money? Whether you call it borrowing or taking, did you not need to get approval
from who?
That's a good question.
I did not get to that. Well, first of all, this was a transaction to purchase an asset ultimately for the state. It was not a private business.
Yeah.
So we're buying an asset which is owned by the state. So if the state, through the Attorney General, is part of the signatures, it's signing the deal. Why does the same government need to give authority to get money from a fund?
If they know what they...
So it's a no-brainer. There was no need in this...
So you were never questioned about it?
Absolutely not. I was never invited to ZAC for anything. I never talked to ZAC about this specific matter, nor any other matter in my whole life. I've never been to ZAC.
What about abuse of office? The investigation that...
The one night you spent behind bars.
For allegedly handpicking a Chinese... Let's talk about that one.
Well, let's talk about that one. But
Every time when
it's
it
getting
gets
hot.
he has to take a sip, like, okay, calm the nerves.
So here's actually what happened when I became a minister. When I became a minister, I received a letter from the chairman of the procurement board, the tender board then, Bakuwaza. He's late now.
Yeah.
And in that letter, he said they had raised concerns about a contract of $218 million that had been signed by Net1 with a Chinese equipment supplier.
Right.
And that matter was never resolved as the tender board, because that issue did not go to tender, and they had concerns about it, and they were just providing information to me as the minister.
Right.
So in the pinda papa and I'll go out, kana mune zvimbambaira munomka hazvifana kuputika ndiri hazvifana kuputika ndakagara pasiti inei. So I had a very good relationship with the late SB Moyo. The late SB Moyo then was working as the head of DED, Defense Economic Development Department, which is the enterprise arm of defense. And they had an investment in the telecommunication sector. So I was having a conversation, I don't know how to deal with it. Kuna allegations that this deal, the 218 million, was overpriced. You know, you must understand, I'm so naive, I also don't understand how to operate. But he then in one instance says, you know what, now. It's a South African company. They're in telecoms. They can help you. So he introduces me to a company called Megawatt. It's Chinese owned, but it's South African. Megawatt is in the telecommunication sector. Megawatt is owned by Li Xiaodong. Li Xiaodong was Africa head of another Chinese telecoms equipment supplier, not the same one who supplied the $218 million equipment.
Right.
So I don't have much of this background because it becomes very interesting later. So when I'm introduced to this guy, I said, you know, there's this concern, and I got this letter from the tender board. They're saying the issues. She goes, no, Isuzu, we can do a verification for you. We can check if indeed you were overpriced or there were any shenanigans. I said, that would be good if you can do that for me, because then it clears me. I'm not, if anything might have happened, I'm not associated with it. I then said, okay, Isuzu's government, we have no money to do this. Are you able to do it for free? Then the guy says, in fact, that's my conversation with SB. We would like to do it to showcase our capacity. I said, fantastic, put it in writing. He goes to put it in writing. We are happy to do this for you. And we will do it at no cost to government. So at that point, I don't just make a decision. The my principles, I go to my immediate boss. I go to the ultimate boss. I say, there's this company that can do. I get the green light. And what do? They do an investigation. They bring evidence to say Padiri is. Here is an example. This item was sold to Telecel for 5,500. On this deal, it was priced to Net1 at 55,000. So the value of the equipment you obtained is not actually what you should have obtained. Hey, don't pay report yenyu. They said no, 218 million, you got equipment worth 120 million. Deal done. I said, okay. So I went to my principals, I briefed them. This is what I've discovered. So what are you going to do about it? question comes. I said,
To you.
yeah. So what are you going to do about it? So I said, okay, this is a signed contract, implemented contract. A few things to finish implementation. I will try and negotiate to bring part of the money back.
218 tabadara, yabai.
218 is a loan.
It's a loan. Right.
But the real amount of the equipment received,
Is
according to
120.
the audit, it was for free by this megawatt company, is about 120 million.
Shit.
So, I said, "Unutangira papi." So I called this company and I said, guys, we have a problem. This is the report I received. Challenge it. They said, no, this is not true. These guys are our competition. That's why they're causing us this problem. I said, okay, this item, they're saying it's 5,000 to Telecel. Confirm it would have been supplied to Telecel at this price. Yes, we can confirm. This item was supplied under this contract to Net One at 55,000. So the guys said, okay. You know what, Minister? We can give back $5 million. And get $5 million. So I go back to my principals. I have 5 million. Todzosa 5 million. She goes, what? This is in writing.
Oh, yeah.
I was very smart about it. I said, put it in writing. So I have all this documentation. So they put it in writing, we'll give back $5 million. I said, in advice, we negotiate further, they offer 15 million. They put it again in writing. I have the documentation. They put it in writing. Then they come back later. I said, no, this is not acceptable. Then they offer 30 million. They give back $30 million. Now, this company that had done the audit for free is the one that is pushing the negotiations. They then say, Isuzu as a company, we would like to get at least 10% of whatever we recover.
Right.
Imari yakabaya kudhara makatoisainira yakaenda.
So if 30 million comes back,
If 30 million
that
comes back,
10%.
munondipawo 10% yedu totora 30 million.
That sounds like a fair deal.
And
Right?
I said, no, I have no problem with that, but it's not my call. I have to go to my principals. I will go to my principals, and I was methodical at every point because I used to put it in writing. So my principal says, yes, we must recover that money. And we go. Now, in their own negotiations, this company and Megawatt, the negotiator, this company offers $1 million to Megawatt. Kuti no, ngati conclude, but mimi tokubhadhara ichi, tokubhadhara $1 million tipedze madhiri.
To keep a peace.
I'm going to keep a peace. Imimi investigator with government tokupai $1 million. Vawira na deal now. Uyu Megawatt yakandira ati isusu tikarecover mari totora 10%. Saka pane 30 million. With 3 million plus 1 million. So if you look around, you find a figure of $4 million.
Yes.
Yeah, you hear a figure of $4 million. That's how it came about. Then I said, okay, how do we do this? So they said, no, isusu azvite kuti tione kuti tichibhadhara your consultant is. Saka isita kudzora mari through Net One. Todzora through supply of more equipment and can audit the price of the equipment and everything. The Net One ndio inozobhadhara chi? Inozobhadhara your consultant. Again, I go and consult. This is what is proposition and this is what is being suggested. So, summarize. I do this transaction in the best interest of the country. I do this transaction as a young minister who's trying to do the right thing. I recover on behalf of the government on a signed contract, $30 million US. I recover that money. Okay? And the guy who has assisted us says, Pamaria kabaya ndikutora $3 million. Because Marianga isipo. Saka, then down the line, I'm being arrested for having given this guy a contract without going to tender to do this investigation. I'm like, this guy offered to do it for free. It's in writing. This guy was never going to get a cent or a penny from Treasury because he's recovering from money yakasainirwa nevanhu vanozikanwa. Ari kutorecover mari iri kunze uko.
That you guys had no idea about.
You have no idea about. So, mosha yangu iri papi. So, that was my defense, and all the paperwork was there. And
so is this also the same story with you fighting with a guy called Agrippa on social media?
That's
that is exactly the story, because what then turns out is that there were, things. Also, the things happen around the same time. The board of Net1 decides to do an audit. Pricewaterhouse, PwC, does an audit on Net1, discovers some bad things which affect some contractors, which includes the guy you've just mentioned. Mm-hmm. And the board decides not to renew the contract. First, they decide to fire the CEO, but later they realize his contract is expiring soon anyway. So they say, oh, let's wait until his contract expires, and we don't renew it. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens. But the guy whose contract is not renewed does not believe the board will have the guts to do so without my direction. So he spews vitriol against me because I don't do basa. So that has been the war. But obviously, Munangano, my friends, are including the guy you've spoken about. Mm-hmm. So they all gang up to go after me, to attack me, to say all sorts of things about me.
But they were saying you had links with this megawatt company. Blue
I definitely had links with them in that they did the audit. That's the link.
They said Blue Nightingale, your company.
Yes, I remember. I remember that.
And then he provided documents.
No,
to that effect.
Let me actually give you the correct version.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier that I used to own Rainbow Cinemas. Mm-hmm. Rainbow Cinemas, we used to get the supply of our movies from South Africa.
Right.
These would come from studios in LA. And because Zimbabwe had sanctions, the guys in South Africa says, we have instruction from studios in LA not to supply movies to Zimbabwe.
Right.
So what you ought to do is to have a South African company which will buy those movies.
Ah.
Okay? So myself, Jimmy Pereira, because I bought a certain percentage, and then Jimmy Pereira was the founder, and her daughter and another were still directors. So that company, Blue Nightingale in South Africa, which we created in order to buy movies from studios in LA to avoid the sanctions.
Right.
Had me as a director, Jimmy Pereira as a director, and many others. Not Chinese, not just me. Mm-hmm. In South Africa, you can have 50 companies called Blue Nightingale. There is a difference of a number at the end. You can have many companies called Denny J in South Africa, companies registry. But the difference is there's a number at the end of Denny J. Mm-hmm. That's what distinguishes the name of the company.
Denny J2, Denny J6.
Denny J6, Denny J10. So, iwewe ukaenda unotora company kanzi Denny J6, what is the same as Denny J10? That's exactly what happened. So, because Blue Nightingale was a company established and abandoned. It had no business in South Africa except to get movies. That's all business it did. And I had given away that company to staff because I was no longer interested in movies, and I could see where was the industry heading.
Yeah.
So this is why this case was thrown up.
This is exactly why Justice Matonzi threw out this matter. But munhu ndiye akatoseva akadzosa mari munyika ndiye wataka kuti imbavha. So that matter was thrown out. So I had two cases against me. Mm-hmm. That was one. So it was thrown out by Justice Matonzi. The second matter, the accusation, was that I took my personal assistant in the ministry and put him on the Porters board when he was not an employee of government. Now, there was a cabinet position that ministers must appoint people from their ministries to go and sit on parastatal boards so that they are the ministers' eyes on those boards, because there were a lot of shenanigans happening on those boards. So ministers didn't need to wait until a report comes from the board. They needed somebody
eyes on the ground.
on eyes on the ground.
Right.
So I appointed the then principal director in the ministry on the Tel One board. I appointed the legal secretary in the ministry on the Net One board. I appointed my personal assistant in the ministry, whose official position is a deputy director level.
Right.
In the ministry. I appointed him to be on the Porters board and several others because I was following a cabinet directive.
Right.
So I was accused of having appointed him when he was not an employee of government, which is all nonsensical. Because I then went to court. Because I don't employ my personal assistant when you work for government. They're employed by the Public Service Commission.
Right.
So I went to the Public Service Commission. They produced a letter of his employment 16 March of 2015. This is when this guy was appointed into the public service. I appointed him 1 year later in February. The evidence is there. But I'm dragged for 2 years. I'm a city employee with government. And obviously the matter died because the evidence was there to the contrary.
So these people were going out of their way to tarnish your image, but you had your paperwork.
I'm very grateful to my assistant because there is no document or paperwork that we did. There's nothing that I put my hand on and it's a signature that she did not put on a flash disk to keep. Without my instruction, without me knowing, when the case came up,
She was
it
just doing
it
all
was
the
just
measures.
If she didn't have...
if she didn't have andakanyura.
Yeah.
Yeah, ndakanyura, because then I didn't have the evidence. But then the evidence was there to prove good. No. Apana chandagaita, which was out of malice or out of criminal conduct or out of abuse of office. I was just doing my job.
And at this point, were you now like regretting getting into politics with all the drama now that was happening?
I think that the biggest impact was not necessarily on me. I took it, within my stride. But my family really, didn't take it lightly.
Yeah.
My kids were really distraught about it.
Getting bullied at school.
Yeah,
your dad.
So it wasn't good. But with hindsight, I think it was a very good experience. I think, and I'm a very firm believer that God doesn't put you through things for no reason. You get
character building.
You get through things so you learn. You learn, and one of the biggest lessons I learned is that when you're in office, you have many friends. When you are behind bars or there's a potential for you behind bars, you really discover who is really genuine.
Diddy will attest to this one. P. Diddy will attest to this one.
And then Nash's face went,
Yeah. So another one of your controversial situations was infrastructure sharing.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, believe that you have a vendetta with Econet Wireless because of... And when you really look at what you were trying to do, it kind of makes sense. But tell us a little more about infrastructure sharing.
Okay. So one of the things that I always want to do if I get into a space, it is to add value. I don't want to get into a space and see things as they are, maintain things as they are. I'd like to get into a space and add real value.
Right.
So I looked around and I said, what could we do differently that would allow rapid expansion of services, particularly in the rural areas where network was not available? I realized that Telecel, Econet, Net1 were in competition to put up base stations. They will put up towers on the same mountain, 3 of them. Each one will have a generator, and they will be delivering diesel. 3 different cars delivering diesel to that generator. They'll have 3 guards guarding differently all that infrastructure. And I realized, this infrastructure is actually imported, and the country is desperate for foreign currency. And I said, I have seen in South Africa, I have seen in China, I have seen in Europe, what companies do through the regulator is they are compelled to establish one facility that accommodates everyone. Whoever establishes that gets paid by the others who rent space on that infrastructure. I said, this is where we should go. But it was already happening. Econet was using Tel 1 infrastructure. Liquid or ZOL was using ZETDC infrastructure because they were laying their fiber cable on existing power pylons. They were already sharing the infrastructure in my government institutions.
Right.
So I said, the model is already formulating on itself. So let's now formalize it. So what I decided to do was, can we have a policy that defines infrastructure sharing as Econet Mugaisa base stations Pamarambinda. Isai no accommodate multiple players. And then
those multiple
Net
players
One,
pay you.
Telecel, or Denny J network will have to pay Econet to rent space on that infrastructure. So that was the concept. So when I introduced it, I think I was misunderstood by Econet, and I would probably say by Strive Masiwa, because there was always what appeared like a conflict between government and Econet. And I think there was a misunderstanding that I was coming with that attitude. But I was saying, but you guys are already using Tier 1 infrastructure. You guys are already using government infrastructure, yes, ZETDC. Muruguisa ma cables and fiber, yes, all onto that infrastructure. You're already sharing government infrastructure. Why do you not want your infrastructure to be shared? But I realized also that networks had a wrong perception or conception of competition. Competition was on infrastructure, not on service. Zimbabweans don't eat infrastructure, they eat service. So therefore, the competition had to be redirected from Ndinindinema base stations Agawanda to Ndinindiri to offer the best service. Compete on service, not on infrastructure. So I tried to redirect the agenda kuti iende towards competition on service and not competition on how many towers you have. And if you have many towers, good for you. Earn more money. Let them pay you for having that. But Econet felt that that was their competitive advantage. And therefore, allowing Telecel or Net1 to come on and be on there would give them competition to the customers that they were enjoying exclusively. And then they didn't understand me.
But it kind of makes sense. So if I start today my network and I put 1,000 base stations across the nation, and then somebody wakes up tomorrow and starts their network and they want to leverage on my 1,000 base stations.
For a fee.
But who determines the fee?
It was going to be the network themselves. The owner of the infrastructure would say, this is what it costs me and this is what I'm going to charge you.
The regulator would probably say...
But the regulator has no agenda against an individual player.
But I would probably put a premium on that so that you are not as competitive.
Well, a regulator
because I would deliberately make sure that you're more expensive than me because it's my base station.
Well, I think that would have to be a conversation between the networks on what is fair.
But they didn't want to have the conversation.
They didn't want to have the conversation because Econet, as the biggest player with the widest network coverage, felt that this would eat into their subscriber base, which is a valid from one perspective. Yeah. But I was looking at this from a national point of view, because I'm now saying, why should we have 3 generators when we can have 1 generator? We're spending foreign currency on bringing that diesel. Yeah. We're wasting resources on bringing those generators. We are bringing in the steel towers. We are bringing in them from outside the country. Why should we deny somebody who wants to bring in drugs for the hospitals? access to foreign currency. Tite mute competition here, three facilities where one could actually save the three. Yeah. So it was that concept, but it was misunderstood.
So
but I'm
it
glad.
was never taken?
No, that is what they're doing now. No, it was implemented.
Okay.
Yeah, but by fire, by force, which shouldn't have been the case, really.
Yeah, because when you look at Cell C has decommissioned all their base stations. They are running on MTN and Vodacom base stations.
It's an established international principle.
Cell C does not own a single base station.
Exactly.
It makes sense. I mean,
But they have a network. I think that's the same with even Virgin Mobile when it was there in South Africa. They were
it's a virtual network. They don't put up infrastructure.
So are you saying to me I could start my own Denny J cellular network and then pay these guys? I can be a wholesale purchaser?
Absolutely. You can start your own virtual network, mobile network, as a result of that policy. It allows people to come in and establish services. This is where I wanted to drive things to before I was accused of trying to undermine Econet's business. To say, don't compete on infrastructure. Let's build a strong infrastructure which allows new players to come in and offer their services. Then competition becomes service competition, not infrastructure competition. And when you have service competition, you'll have all fantastic products and the consumer enjoys that competition.
All right, so you also at loggerheads with Econet over the Universal Services Fund. Econet was alleging, or they wanted a report showing that everybody was paying. Because as at, I don't know what date was it, as of 2016, Econet had paid 59 million towards the Universal Services Fund. So they wanted to know if everybody else was paying, because Net1 and Telecel were not exactly doing as well as Econet.
You see, from a position of fairness, I felt that Econet must not even doubt me, because when I came in and realized that they were, number one to pay their license fee in full, although they had done some structures and in some debt restructuring towards the license, but by and large, they had fulfilled their obligation. Right. I felt that it can't be fair. And therefore, I would not have been then accused of favoring other networks in terms of contribution towards the Universal Services Fund. I would not have been in a position to accept or allow that situation where one was paying and the others were not paying. Understand that Universal Services Fund, and this is where we had a very big fundamental disagreement. They wanted to see, because they felt that it is their money. And I said, no, the reality is that you ungori broker. Inini ndikabhadhara Econet for my line. If I pay them $100, 1.5, $1.50, iri kuenda kuUniversal Services Fund. Haisi Econet yabhadhara mari iyo. Ndini imi mangotambidzwa kuti mutambidze Universal Services Fund. Saka what right have you got to ask kuti mari yacho yaenda kupi? It's not your money. This munane right is the consumer. Who contribute to Universal Services Fund? But I want to see the annual report of the Universal Services Fund.
But you can understand their concern, because Econet is doing well. Net1 is not doing as well. Telecel is struggling, to say the least. So I would imagine that when they were asking for this report, like if I'm paying you money, whether it's my money or
it's not you.
No, I'm the agent. Right? Okay, I'm taking this money and I'm giving it to you.
Right.
But what is so wrong with you just showing me a report of how this
there's
money
absolutely nothing wrong. But don't come with the attitude that I have a right to know. Because it's not your money.
But I also have a right, because I'm providing the service which is making the government money.
No, you should see the report here, Potras. Because
without me, this money wouldn't exist.
Without government license, you wouldn't be even existing.
True. So
it's a win-win. Show me the report.
But
he's saying
but there's nothing wrong in
if you want a report, go to Potras. That's the report that you should be looking for. Universal Fund.
Universal Services Fund.
I see.
It's not. You cannot demand. Because I feel that didn't contribute. A contributor is your consumer. The consumer is paying a tax, and that tax is just being channeled through you. I don't have my rights on that amount of money if you are going to breach.
So how did you end up resolving that one? Did you ever resolve it?
I don't remember what happened. I really don't remember. But it wasn't such a big issue. I mean, the guys at Econet are very brilliant guys. I mean, you have some of the finest managers there, some of the finest brains at Econet. That's why they've been able to build a very formidable network. I think ultimately we found each other and we all agreed at family and it was important that every player must play their part in terms of contributions to the Universal Services Fund.
Okay. There was, let's talk about Starlink. There was, I think, I don't know if it was a question and answer in Parliament where you questioned the current Minister of ICT, Tunde Mavetera. And you seemed to imply, on the question of Starlink and their application for a license to operate in the country, you seemed to imply that there should be consideration of Elon Musk's. Elon Musk owns X, right? Which is Twitter.
Which is Twitter, that's right.
Right. And your argument was, well, the government is constantly being attacked, the leadership is being constantly attacked on Twitter, and therefore that should be that should be something of concern when they are considering the application for Starlink.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the question wasn't well understood. Here's what was happening at that time. In Europe, the European Commission had just taken a position against Elon Musk. I don't remember what the main issues were, but they had taken
misinformation or something.
Something to do with failing to regulate or to screen wrong information on Twitter.
Yeah.
And that they were going to take very stern action against Elon Musk as a result. That's the European Union, the European Commission taking that position. Kuti iwewe Twitter yako nguramba ichingospreada message ekunyepa by Danny J, by Becky, you will be accountable, will take action against you. This was something being done in Europe. I juxtaposed that question to say, here is the situation in Europe. No problem with X because of this kind of stuff. It allows without verification on its platforms. As you are considering licensing one of its services by the same owner, would you be able to be doing the same thing that the European Commission is doing on Elon Musk? And that was a legitimate question in my view. Here are Europeans, most advanced, most enlightened, most free in terms of democratic. This is what the impression that we get. And they are taking a position against Elon Musk on the basis that my platforms are to spread negative, sometimes information is still true. And they want to take action against Elon Musk. And I'm saying, okay, me as a ministry, mucha consider my Europeans
to regulate
musati mampa license ukuthi
Starlink
iwe X yakwe iri kutukirira leadership yedu iri kudivide amaZimbabweans iri kudivide society yedu. Can you make sure at least you will save out zvinhu promote hate? And for a fact that there's quite some promotion of a hate language on X and Zimbabweans among themselves. And I was asking the question in that context, but I think the media interpretation of that question was completely wrong. And then they started saying, I don't want it licensed here.
Because that's from listening to it, it sounds like that.
It's because that's what Zimbabweans like to hear. Zimbabweans are very funny people. Akangofunga uti uda kuti everything will be tend to believe in those or without.
Okay.
I absolutely have no issue.
So you are for Starlink?
Here is what I think needs to happen. And this is my Supa Mandiwanzira view.
Okay, all right.
And I wear many hats and I want to distinguish this. This is my view.
This is who is speaking at this point.
So
okay.
My view on Starlink is that it's a service that everybody who is in certain areas, who is in certain situations, would require because of accessibility
And
affordability, where services are not available. But I have a problem with services that are coming from outside, where no tax is paid to the government, where no revenue
That's where your
accrues.
story is.
Wait, let me finish. Where no revenue accrues to Zimbabweans. And if it was entirely up to me, I would have said, let's have Tel1 go into bed with Starlink.
Starlink, right?
So that the services of Starlink are offered through Tel1. You pay to Tel1 and the Tel1 and the people of Zimbabwe.
But now
the challenge right now is that people who will put this, I don't subscribe to South Africa. I will not have revenue.
But once they're licensed, they'll be paying taxes. Well, once they're licensed, they'll be paying taxes. This issue of having a net one or a middleman obviously raises the premium because that middleman has to be paid something. If you were to license them today, they would be eligible to pay taxes.
Yeah,
so there would be no need for a net one or anything else because the minute you put a third party, it's more money and it's more money.
Yeah,
to
but
the
we have to
consumer.
be a bit smart about these things. If you go to Europe, Google pays huge taxes in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starlink will pay huge taxes
wait,
for the service.
What taxes are paid by Google in Zimbabwe? Zero. Because our Tina negotiating power, where a population of 60
now they're
million.
paid. YouTube is part of Google. Now they sent a message to say now because of tax authorities, now they're going to be paid.
Yeah, but
Mutuli Ngube confronted them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
YouTube revenue, the government is taxing now.
Yes, but that is a new development. But when we were talking, I knew the background. Ku Europe, all these over-the-top services, they pay taxes in Europe. They pay taxes in the UK.
They're now paying.
Come to Africa, they pay zero.
Now
because
they're
we are not organized. So in my view at that point, let's organize ourselves and get somebody who represent these guys so that we are able to monitor the amount of revenue. How do you supervise? How do you audit the revenue? Yes, Zimbabwe, Google. How do you audit?
Honorable, now if you give Starlink a license, you're going to give them conditions. You're going to tell them this is our tax, this is what you need to pay, and then it's taken every time they pay. They can actually pay locally, and the tax is taken.
I think that kana murukutaura nyaya tax inofana kubhadharwa locally. You and I are aligned. What I don't like is the idea, and I'll give you an example. Is the idea that the government has spent resources building schools, educating Zimbabweans, and making them a ready market for Google, making them a ready market for Microsoft products, okay? And Microsoft enjoys this market here create connect government of Zimbabwe at no cost of itself, and enjoys that but pays zero to Zimbabwean government or contributes nothing to Zimbabwean government. But that it was in the same context.
Right.
It was in the same context. Good to know. We ought to find a way that allows us to earn out of any revenue that is generated by a foreign entity from Zimbabwean opportunity.
I think we're getting there now.
No, but Mkuru, I think also it's a bit unfair at times because the roads are bad. We have no electricity. We've got one or two problems in the country. Starlink government all this problem, you know what I mean? Because our internet is the most expensive in the world.
I don't want to talk about Starlink because I'm not in government. I'm not the minister of ICT. I'm just giving
your views.
I'm just giving you my views. And in any case, the honest truth is, Zimbabweans vanga vachimhanya, hey, license in front of you, Starlink. Starlink actually not even put an application to Potras. And the minister kept telling people in parliament that they have not applied. The Director General of Potras, Vama Chengete, kept on telling Zimbabweans, yeah, but you want us to license somebody who has not applied. But Zimbabweans are quick to undermine their own. So they will go after, without even the facts. The facts at that particular point go into research right now when that application was put in. But this debate has been raging for the last 6+ months.
Elder.
This application was put maybe a month ago. But Mazimbabwe havana kupiwa license.
It's a problem, Elder, because internet is good and
Starlink
in a solution.
But it's why
Starlink in a solution.
But it's why we could blame. I'm not going to blame hurumende kuti amuna ku license Starlink. Iyo is not to apply. This is where my point is.
It's cheaper license.
Remember, I just do my process. We must treat the way we treat Zimbabweans in terms of licensing process. So I'm sure the government is following that process, and I'm sure the government ultimately will come with a solution that will make you happy, happy, everybody happy. Yeah, but more importantly, the taxmen happy.
Yeah.
Has to do with the taxman, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know. Okay, so this is
my pets are my controversy.
No, Minister, I don't know. All right. I don't know what else I had. Oh, Big K is just waiting on me.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on you because like you were on a roll. I was like, okay.
He's not giving us chances.
I was just like, now this is the Denny J show. I'm like, Nash and I was just like, crickets in the background. But it's okay.
It is the Denny J show.
We're just waiting to know where are we, so we
tell
know
us
where
about
to
your
ask.
involvement with Univen. You know, there was the controversial Zinara $8 million snow grader scandal. Your name was thrown in that
snow grade.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about the snow graders.
Yeah.
Fiasco.
Thank you very much, and I think that's also a very important question. So I do other businesses, you know. Zimbabwe kana chida zvinofaiga or one business. Ungotsvaga kumwe kuri
Semuna kaita ma business stories.
So what happened was that in one of my travels, I came across an opportunity to be in the yellow machinery business, to sell yellow machinery. So I'm involved with a company called XCMG Zimbabwe. Now we supply machinery primarily from Shugong Construction Machinery Group. It's one of the top 5 companies for yellow equipment in the world. And when I say yellow equipment, I mean excavators, graders, front-end loaders, stuff like that. Right. So the Zinara went to tender. They wanted graders, and these graders were going to my local authorities. And Zinara was going to pay because they collect the road tax. My company, XCMG, yakabida, and we lost. That tender, the so-called snow graders tender, was won by a company known as Univen.
Right.
Okay? So I cannot have 2 companies that are bidding. And the good thing is that it's on public record who owns Univen. Lawrence Shear, Musakiwa Kumbula, these are well-known Zimbabweans. But by and large, it's owned majority by white Zimbabweans. Right. Lawrence Shear is one of the leading shareholders there. But I don't know why I was associated with that tender, because I lost that tender. It was won by Univen, which is owned by Southern Trading. Right. It's a company that's involved somehow in our highways. They do a lot of software things, and they work with Zinara and others. I'm nowhere near that company. I'm not involved with Univen. The so-called snow graders are graders that were supplied by Univen, not by me. But the issue at the end of the day is generally Zimbabweans like the idea of undermining other Zimbabweans. We like to easily apportion blame on other black business people. Even Pasina Chawaita and Zimbabweans are not ready to listen to a rational answer. So nobody has ever wanted to ask Kuti, Ndimi Maka supply my graders.
So how does your name get thrown in there?
I actually have no idea. So because it was circulating on social media, Transparency International, a whole Transparency International repeats that in the annual report, and I sued them. I said, on what basis do you associate me with a company whose ownership is publicly known? It's owned by an Lawrence Shear and Amsekiwa Kumbula. Moda kuti amudu kublame kuti company varungu pamwe ndio yakaita corruption. Moda kuti ye munhu mutema ndio yamuda kubata kuti ndio yaita corruption. This is one of our biggest failures as a society. As a society, we are quick to accept and we are quick to apportion blame on anything that is negative on blacks, We will not accept kuzvinoitwa nevarungu. We will only see vanhu vatema as the worst. And I explain that in two ways. Number one, it's difficult for vanhu vatema to support and celebrate another successful black person. Right. Because I don't know what it happens. They will think kuti by supporting pamwe ivo vanoruza support respect yemadzimai kumba here, or I don't understand. Because at the end of the day, what happens is that if Denny does well and you make lots of money, shonzi Denny akaromba kana kuti Denny front hazvisi zvake, because people are not ready to accept
that
a black person can actually make it. And I think if we get past that attitude, we can become even more successful. That's why we don't support each other. I have a very good example. Kwandiri MP kunyanga. There's a nice guy. There's a nice place yakavurwa ne some black guy. Kutuno paka, nice place yakugara. Resa pool yemvura. Uchitenga ma apples. Uchitenga ma burgers and stuff.
Right.
Then about 5-6 kilometers down the line, there's a container, I guess, one in Murungu. You know, go to all similar stuff. Mota dzine dzakazara, dzavana vatema, dzine dzakazara ipapa imurungu ipapa. Uku mutema unotofura hapana kana mota one inomira. Because atikwanise kusapotana. And we are quick to want negative about each other. And I'm being a victim of that because I am not associated with Univen. I don't know them. I've never met Lawrence Shea in my whole life. I know Msekiwa Kumbola personally. He's one of the owners of that company. I blame Hon Supa supply masno graders because nakidza kuti we associate Supa with Zanu PF with the corruption. But I want to facts, and it's unfortunate. But ndongo kumbira maZimbabweans kuti I think we must start appreciating each other, and before we apportion blame, let's get facts.
Well said.
Done.
Okay.
But must no grade pub get
What were they being used for?
To be honest, I don't know what was supplied because I lost.
So
lost
what were you bidding for? What were you bidding for?
Trying to supply my graders, I end up my local authorities. Good my roads, my road district councils.
Okay, and maybe a snow grader was like.
I think to be fair,
does the job.
To be fair, grader. But you can add another component in Ogona Visa Snow. Which component can which component comes as an accessory? It can be removed. It can work for other things.
Okay.
But because women in a negative fashion,
okay.
Tanya is technical ngatinde kuno da Nash. Mzangu mkadzi akaenda na Joseph Kabila. Let's take it back
Denny,
to the streets.
Denny,
let's take it back to the streets.
That's a sore
Let's
point.
take it back to the streets.
Say it nice at least.
It's dramatic.
Oh, it has to be dramatic.
Yeah, it rains for so long.
For so long.
You are big.
Big
communication.
Again, zvangofana nemasnow grader. Indodo inziro pa social media.
But yakanyaso sound because makangotanga kurira from nowhere. Saka message yakabuda.
I remember hearing the story and feeling so sorry for you.
I went and I feel sorry ndakati ndararo heavy deal.
Not heavy deal.
Because big unengwachengesa problem yako. Wachengesa
problem. Overpay heavy big.
Wow.
Overpay heavy by US.
Wow. I was taking it from man, they put a gun to his head.
No. And the long and short that it is a fabrication.
It never happened.
It's unfounded. I got married in 1998. I still have that same wife. Never changed. Yes, you know, it's what about it.
And I'm going there for some time.
So your wife was Grace's sister who went to...
It's all nonsense. You know, when people want to create it,
what a story.
They will just say anything. That's nonsense. There's nothing like that. Who sells a person? In fact, I remember na General SB Moyo. I said, I even asked it because I was personally na Kabila. Yanza even ask Kabila, what's happening? Kabila katayo kabla mzima wangu ndio muno kamkongo. So it's not true at all. It's all unfounded.
But
It's
there's
a
no
fabrication.
smoke without
It's
fire.
another conspiracy.
Well, this is one example of smoke with no fire whatsoever.
So there was no relation between your wife and Kabila knowing each other or them
Absolutely
ever talking.
nothing,
So your wife
nothing.
was never taken from you.
In fact, my
So I
wife.
felt sorry for you for nothing.
In fact, my wife got a call from my aunties. They live kuwedza. Kuchivuko. Kuti iwe tiri kunzwa kuti wakatiza murume. Akatoseka zvake kuti kochi makazvinzwa kupi. Yakatosvika kumaruwa rana tete wacho kuti nyaya tiri kunzwa iri kubva kupi. But the long and short, it's not true. I mean, it's all garbage, frankly speaking.
And your alleged relationship with the former First family, you're supposed to be very close, and this is why you were elevated so quickly.
Yeah, again, people must find an explanation for things that they don't understand. I think I've just told you my whole life trajectory. Ndakutaura kuti takakurira kumusha. Ndakutaura kuti takaenda kwaMutare taigara kudanga mvura sakubva danga mvura takaenda ku the West School yaisekwa nevanhu kuti munoenda kunyamauru makashaya nzvimbo maschools akanaka here. Dai ndine jet rekumusoro ikoko. Do you think ndaizoenda ikoko?
Or even do night school.
Yeah.
Zokuti nephew wa Mugabe, nephew wa Nyanga.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of my colleagues Kubasa was doing a search. Agaenda akashandisa AI, chat
GPT.
Yeah, I must stop bringing drinks to the
Chatty
yoyo. And then it said that I was a cousin of former President Mugabe.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, a great respect for our former president. I think a lot of what I believe in about black people, about the abilities of black people, about the exceptional abilities of us as a race, and belief in myself and conviction in myself, I got it from that man. So, but I was never related to him in terms of blood relationship or family connection.
Okay.
I was really just related to him that he is my president, he is black like me, he runs our country, he's together with our current president, Comrade Emmerson Mnangagwa, and many others. They're the ones who sacrificed to go in their youth to go and fight for our independence and liberation, that we can sit here and have this conversation in a free country and we do things that we want in a free country. I didn't have that relationship that I assumed that I have. Whatever I was elevated to was on the basis, in my view, on the basis of merit. I had no sponsor. I had nobody who went kuti muzukuru wangu muitirewo chakati muzukuru wangu andina marelationship iwo vakumaruzevha kunyanga takatongoitirewo nyasha namwari kuti ndangowanawo ndasvika pandasvika. It had nothing to do with having to know somebody and somebody. I just have had people who believe in me and believe in my abilities, and I thank God for that. And I am so proud kuti I have served under the two leaders that our country have seen. I served under President Robert Mugabe. I served under President E.T. Mnangagwa. And I think as a young Zimbabwean, I mean, I'm satisfied. Rashandra, two of the greatest people who have taken our country to great heights. So I'm happy.
Right, nice. Were you G40?
What is G40?
We thought you would tell us.
Thought you would tell us.
I don't know. I don't know what is G40.
G40.
But on a very serious note, I think that there were factional disputes within our party, and there was a group that identified itself with the moniker G40, which means they were Generation 40. It was largely a group of young people who felt that things should go in a certain direction.
Okay.
And everybody who was young during that period was associated with G40. But the facts on the ground will prove that I was associated with the leadership of this country. I understood where power resided, and I understood that my appointment meant I was supposed to deliver on certain objectives of the state, of government, and I did not have to pay allegiance to other individuals outside the line of authority. So that has been my attitude, and that remains my attitude as a political player. I give due respect to the authority in charge and those that follow that authority. I don't go on the sideways.
Put simply, he's not G40.
He's not G40.
no.
Okay, but in your explanation, it's like generation 40, or were they under 40? Were they young people? Were they 40 people?
They were 40 plus.
Oh, they were 40 plus.
I want to refer you to a conversation, to a speech that was given by former president in Bindura,
Okay.
in which he spoke about the origins of the so-called G40.
I think I saw that
And
video.
he was making, not comparisons as such, but was giving the background of why certain people then associated themselves with Barack Obama, who was a young man who had come in.
Right.
I think he provides the answer to what G40 was.
All right.
And I can assure you that my own perspective on politics and leadership does not involve myself in side shows that disrespect the authority
The
in charge.
authority in charge.
You have very interesting views on indigenization. I want to touch on that real quick. I saw a clip, I think a video, where you put out some very interesting perspective, especially on indigenization and the fact that incentives are only given to big corporates. Small players also need incentives. Tell us.
Yeah, my
about
attitude
that.
is that it's important to support big business because the businesses are big. If they fail, the implications on the national economy are huge because they're huge businesses.
Right.
But I think that this country can go forward if we invest more in the young people who are coming out of universities and we give them opportunity by making sure that they are linked to the big businesses as suppliers to the big businesses, as subcontractors to the big businesses. And I believe that we must give opportunity to new businesses, to small and medium enterprises in order to change the economic circumstances of many of our people. The capacity of a big organization, of a big corporate like Delta, like Deribo, to create employment is by far not as large as the capacity of small businesses. So if we invest in small businesses, we empower the indigenous people to get into the businesses, we will have much quicker economic growth in our country, and that's my general view. We'll have faster growth, we'll have more employment, and we will utilize the energy of the young people, which is greater than the energy of the old businesses.
That's nice, yeah. And you also talk about value addition and that sort of thing. A lot of people are into gold mining and so on. Raw minerals are being exported out of the country. There's no beneficiation. There's no value adding.
And I think that we must not blame the government. I think we need to blame institutions that are created to foster value addition or to foster entrepreneurship development. I had the privilege of meeting the new CEO of CBZ Group, and a very sharp gentleman who is going to do big things there at CBZ. And I had a conversation with him to say, you know, when President Mnangagwa says we cannot allow anyone, whether they're Chinese, South Africans, Russians, or British or Americans, to take our lithium in its raw format without processing and then go and create jobs in their countries in terms of processing that lithium. We should process it in our own country. We must not expect President Mnangagwa to then set up companies that do that. We then must expect our bankers to say, the president has spoken, he has given us direction, so what we are going to do is that we are going to put a fund in place that allows Denny, that allows Becky, that allows Nash and the other Nash to go and import 200,000 worth of a lithium processing plant that makes concentrate. And because the president has spoken about a policy creates opportunity, but it needs bankers. It needs entrepreneurs who will say, you know what, I was just about to build a house in Winsdale. I was going to put $1 million on that house. I will wait put that $1 million in a plant. In three years, I would have made 10 million. I'll still build the same house. Let's invest in the vision that has been outlined by the president in order to grow the economy.
And you're also advocating for banks to get gold license buying?
Yes.
Gold buying licenses.
Yes.
My drinks.
My attitude is this. One of the best things that the government of President Emmerson Mnangagwa has done is to bring in a new currency that has the very little risk of behaving like other currencies we have had before, local currencies we have had before. Because ZiG is backed by gold, is backed by platinum, is backed by diamonds, is backed by US dollars sitting in the Reserve Bank. So as a currency that's backed by our mineral resources, it is thoroughly important that we then promote more and more production of those resources, though we fill up the Reserve Bank with gold. We fill up the Reserve Bank with diamonds. So we fill up the Reserve Bank with platinum. So what we need to do, in my view, and this is what I've been propagating, is that we must harness all the gold that is being produced in this country around the borders. I have a constituency that shares the border with Mozambique. People who produce there, they're buyers who just cross the river and they're buying. We must stop that by making sure that gold that is produced in this country, anyone who produces it can walk into a bank in Nyanga and say, I want to sell my gold. And then you sell your gold, you get your money. So that we have more production, we send more young people to the mines, they're digging gold because there's a market that is defined that is ready to give cash. We then say to our banks, ma capital adequacy, we don't necessarily expect you to give us my title deeds, my buildings, to know there's capital adequacy. Gold. So you unlock the money they have to go and buy gold, which they deposit with the central bank. So we produce more and more and more gold. And I was just talking in Mutare a few days ago, and I said, ma nickel and ma diamonds. Ma diamonds, vanhu vari kuchera ball, or kana kuti vari kuchera mugodi wemvura pa mukova pavo, they can come across diamonds. But where can they go and sell that diamond? Akutotsvaga ma-Sierra Leoneans akazara mamutare, akutsvaga ma-Lebanese ari across the border in Manica kuti anotengesa diamond iyoro. Let's create banks that can buy those diamonds so that those diamonds come into the formal market and we are harnessing this money for national growth for our economy. Country. So it stays in the country, we're creating value for the country, but more importantly, we're strengthening our currency. So it was just a suggestion I made. Perhaps the Reserve Bank doesn't have to worry about licensing too many players to buy gold because you've already licensed banks. And to be licensed as a banker, you go through a rigorous process. Gold. So they start training people and putting buying centers in their branches around the country.
That makes sense. Mgiros, what do you think about that?
No, I want to ask him, did you watch The Gold Mafia?
Yes, I did.
What was your because we're talking about what you're talking about now.
Yes.
Utilization and everything, and then linking it.
Then you watched Gold Mafia. I mean, what did you think?
Okay, when I watched the Gold Mafia, what came out through the Gold Mafia was, for me, was the fact that we as black people are nowhere near the money. Out of all the players that came out of the Gold Mafia documentary, which black men made money out of gold? You can't pick one. Everybody was just an accusation. You were accusing Hubert Angel kutanga achida kuita diri. You were accusing Lushwaya Henrietta kutanga achida kuita diri. You are accusing vanga vachita madiri acho, are they black? They are not. So one thing I learned is that we are nowhere near the money. The other thing I learned that it's easy to blame black people who are not making anything, but we leave the real guys who are making the money. Go back and watch those documentaries. They tell us that we are quick to blame ourselves. Apana baba niya anakana charwana. Henrietta anakana chakawana. Muna daudo troya kuti pampanga buda diri. Hubert Angel daudo ngori pamanga ito diri. Ndiye aka receive the biggest blame. But the real people vaka piwa trust yekuti endai muno tengesa muye ne mari, and they were breaking that trust. No one blamed them. No one blamed those people. And then the other thing I took away from that documentary was the fact that sanctions are not good for this country. In fact, after watching that documentary, I believe all Zimbabweans should have woken up and said, no, remove these sanctions because they are giving us an excuse to have underhand transactions. All transactions must be on top of the table.
Board, yeah.
So the reason why our gold was being sold that way was because we are avoiding money being wired to Zimbabwe because it's kubatwa ku America. Saka, the issue should have been good point, good documentary in terms of a rallying point to fight the sanctions, because we then have no excuse of having some individual going out with gold so that are in a cash. So the corruption was not about black people. The real people who were making money were not black people. But we all went out and attacked everybody who's black. But the real players, we are not attacking.
No one was saying nothing.
I've got a follow-up question. Explain why Africa is so poor when we have all these resources. Why? I mean, why do we not, why are we where we are now?
Very simple. We are where we are right now, in my view, because we have not understood the value of wealth. We have not been taught at school the importance of wealth underground, the importance of wealth of agriculture, the importance of many things that make Africa rich. Iwewe kuchikoro hauna kudzidza mari. For the longest time, there was no degree at the university mining law. Mining law. There's a new dean. I introduced in the last 2 years a law degree for to understand mining. And yet this is a mining country. No degree for agriculture. Yet this is an agriculture country, because it was designed so that we don't think about things that are important, things that generate value and wealth for ourselves, our children, and the grandchildren. So there's a system that was built by the colonizers to make sure that we're always diverted from what is important. A lot of our people, let's look at the donor community. A lot of the donor community intervene on which issues? Gender equality. They intervene on children's rights. They intervene on many other issues, the circumcision. They intervene on those issues. And I don't mean to demean those issues as not important. They are important. But tell me one NGO that says, Zimbabwe Minima Resources, we want to train your people how to make money out of your gold, convert it to more value. Who? No donor does that. Isusu, we need them to wake up with, why do they not do that? Because to not divert in terms of what should be our priorities, in my view.
And then we lose focus of what is really important.
Tiri busy inini kurwana bheki because ndikangotaura bheki kuti madzimai akadzvinyirirwa bheki vati varume ndimuri kudzvinyirira ndo debate yatoita for the 1 week. But game riri pakesha. Game riri pakuti but madiamonds edu aringobuda. But the good thing is we have a president who is very alert to those issues. That's why akati aiwa lithium yedu haichangobuda. Ngatange taprocessa kuti itange yabuda. Maminerals edu haachangobuda. Ngatange taprocessa kuti angodi angobuda. Because when you process, you increase the value. That was missing.
And create employment.
You create employment, you increase the value. So diamond ravakwachiadzwa riri raw rinotengeswa 1,500.
And I think that's the
then
same
but
thing
inozonotengeswa internationally rakatwa 1,500 a carat. Saka president wedu vari kuziva direction. Saka isusu we just now need to respond and now say ngatitangei muZimbabwe muno to show the world we can make money and make significant wealth among black people using our resources.
Amazing. And finally, your views on foreign currency. I also heard what you said regarding your views on foreign currency retention by big corporates. Maybe I want you to just
we had a conversation. I think it was HICC where you picked that up. I think we have had a situation where big investors come into the country.
Yeah.
They are given incentives, and some of those incentives, for some of them, included the right to bank their money outside Zimbabwe. Why? Because they argued that your currency is not stable. They argued that the environment is not stable. They argue that our investors are a bit wary about putting money in Zimbabwe policy-wise, so they would prefer kuti tibenge kunze. And my argument is the resource that is making them that money is a Zimbabwean resource. Right. So we don't want to take their money, but let this money circulate in Zimbabwean banks. So if you want to go and borrow, you can borrow, return that money. It's circulating within the economy, so it's growing our economy. So when you bank this money because you've been given dispensation, you bank it in Mauritius, you bank it in Australia, you bank it in South Africa.
It's no benefit.
It's benefiting those economies. The resources gone to those economies. What are we benefiting? We ought to start doing things, in my view,
that benefit
our country. It doesn't have to necessarily be a piece of that money coming to me as a dividend. It must be the ability to yabengwa ku CBZ, yabengwa ku FBC. Iri muno merikutenderera. Ino borrow overnight, ndoro dirangu yondozosa mari. That's how economies grow. They grow because there's money in circulation. Kweli kuti tosvika kubengi onza mari yekulenda hakuna. Nekuti tabvumira vanhu vari kutengesa $100 million, $200 million worth of commodities per month, depositing that money outside the country.
So you're saying these big mining corporations, when they sell our gold, they must bring all the money back and
I think that is what the law says. Economy. That is actually what the law says, and that's actually what happens. However, there are others. However, there are others that were given this dispensation to say Benkai outside the country. Simply because at the time they were doing investments, there were genuine concerns. Kuti, my investors said, we're not sure of the environment, politically, just stable. Saka, kuti tiwake plan yatida kuwaka, tivumire kuti tombo benga mari zedu kunze. Which was okay at that particular point, but it can't be permanent.
A lot of people will come, they'll mine our gold, they'll pay a little bit of money in taxes, export all that, get 100 million, and then I think how much of that 100 million are they supposed to?
I need to put
the
this
retention. I think is it 60-40?
I'm not sure the specific.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
But I need to speak into perspective, because when you speak about the elders, I tend to get the impression that you think that they don't think. In fact, there's a lot of wisdom in these elders.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't be here. If boys that decide there is no boots, there is no food. Risina kana motikari kuti aiwa takwenda kuMozambique tonobata gidi tuye titore country from Muwenge apa Muwenge anga ane helicopter anga ane ndege ndo boys racho rikura nacho zvinhu izvo so musambo waderere
but manje chikuitika manje kuti my elders guy ari kumirira kuti Supa uya avaudze zvikuitika on the streets because Supa are on the streets.
Yeah, but you must understand kuti indungo clear what I felt kuti it could be your perception kuti aiwa kuti madhara my elders anachi ana munyati we game ri kutambika so aderere madhara anoketa anoziva zvinhu so inini I believe kuti role yangu pandakanzi na president kuisa politburo ndeyekuti from my industry experience, from my constituents' experience, from my interactions, my ideas and my views. Pano discuss kwa nyaya ndo zviso pa table. Kuti market iri kudai iri kuti zvakati saka tati zviconsider. Saka zvese hakuna just to give you some insights. Pano chair His Excellency ma meetings edu. Anoti hapana chamofana kusiya. Say everything. Let's discuss openly, but you know, God discuss takavharirana. Chitaura nachokwadi kuti apa panomira musha apa ngatidai maybe tadai and he's a listening president, is willing to hear different sides and consider the different views and different perspectives. So we discuss these things, but rumende yakafana nenzo. I got tenor like this because there are so many elements you have to consider, and that's how bureaucracies must work. Things must not change overnight because ndakufunga thoroughly because mungangochinja masiya chimwe chinhu moto cause chaos. So bureaucracy is designed to make sure that by the time you turn, you've addressed all the other elements around it.
Oh, and the next time pamunenge muna mukuru vakumbira kuti vamboyo pashow
muri mupolitburo
ipapo pane boys rangu kamudhara vanhu vari kuteerera nyaya reboys rangu people listen to boys rangu
but manje ndosvitsa message yeboys vari kutoinzwa
kuti maya mukuru mukanoona boys iri kaya rinosvitsa shoko
rinosvitsa shoko Is there anything that you feel like we left out, what the people of Zimbabwe and the world at large need to know about Supa Mandiwanzira?
I know it's not about me, in my honest view. To be honest, I'm just a vehicle that has been put. I think I'm here not because I'm Supa Mandiwanzira. I think I'm here because of the positions and the responsibility I've been given. I don't believe getting a license for radio was because I must personalize it and make money for myself. But I believe it's a responsibility that I was given to shepherd the nation towards a certain objective and certain goals. The positions that I've occupied in government, I don't believe that they've been positions for personal aggrandizement, but I think they have been positions that have been given in order to create certain value for the nation of Zimbabwe. Similarly, as I sit in the Politburo, I don't think it's a personal achievement, but I think it's something that is done that I have been plunged into in order to contribute and make a difference in our country. So I am saying this because I don't want it to be about Supa Mandiwanzira. I think it's about the country. It's what each one of us can do to save Zimbabwe. I do many things in these portfolios that I've been given. Right. But it doesn't mean that if you are not in these portfolios, you can't do anything for the country. We all can do huge things for our country. The one thing that we must all do, and we can do very easily, is to speak positively about ourselves and about our country.
Yes.
One of the biggest weaknesses of our country is we blame each other. Totuka urumende, totuka president, totuka leadership, totuka machechi, toita. We are so bent on criticizing ourselves to the point that no one outside respects us. So I believe it's very important kuti, as individuals, we must start speaking positively about our country. I was talking to colleagues in Nyanga last week when we had a meeting, and we were talking about Zig. And one person asked kuti, saka Zigi manje tikabuda nayo Mozambique tinautenga across the border accept waere. I said, you know what? The value of a currency, the acceptability of a currency lies with its own people. If isusu tika accept mari yedu, the South Africans will accept it in the bank when you go and change it. The Mozambicans will do the same because they know you will go there following that money. Marans, you kapiwa no atambira because ukasangana South Africans muna first street you will accept those rands. So if we love that which is our own, everybody else will respect us, everybody else will respect our currency. Same applies to the country. If we love our country, if we respect our leadership, if we respect our country, if we respect ourselves, everybody else will respect us. That's all we need to do in order to contribute to a great nation.
Love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable
Supa
Mandiwanzira
Collins,
MP for Nyanga South. Thank you. Nyanga South is in safe hands.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
That's all.
It's been a great pleasure. It's been a great pleasure, man.
And that's how we sign out.
And we do this. The episodes are getting longer and longer.
Dude, I don't understand.
Like, what are we supposed to miss out?
I don't understand. Like, and people are going to watch. That's what, for me, I'm like.
Back with me, they keep flagging me like, which part am I supposed to cut off?
No, but like, you know what? You really, you went to town with a certain. Yeah, but anyway, it's okay.
Yeah,
No, but I mean, it only makes sense when you have a legend. You can't take one out.
You can't take one out.
No, we do legendary interviews, and thank you very much for
Thank you for having me. Really,
because he's never been on a podcast, right? Like,
no, this is my first time.
Never. Will you come back?
Award-winning podcast.
Award-winning. Will you come back?
You know what I mean?
Well, if you invite me.
Wonderful.
If the people who are watching invite me back.
Yes. and we're good hosts, right?
Yeah. No, fantastic. Nice drinks, good food.
Nice drinks.
Good vibe.
Good people.
Good
vibes.
Yeah,
No,
nice crowd.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I really enjoyed myself.
We out. It's the Denny J Show. Remember to subscribe so that you can get notifications. Like and comment. Nash reads all 700 plus comments. Don't you, Nash?
I definitely do.
Yes, he does. So comment. We'd like to hear from you. Until next time, Becky K, Denny J, Nash,
and Honorable.
And the crew behind the scenes. We out.
Thank you.
The Denny J Show. Zvanga zviri down ta up tauraitinzwe nyaya dzacho dzese narrative ndaichidwe kana mchida kutipisa deep ndaipidwe make you spill a bean if you know what I mean hande